going to have dinner tonight with a friend, and tomorrow we're doing the show from the bus at his law firm. His name is Mark Victor, and he and attorneyforfreedom.com. And he's been a good friend for a long time, and we did our freedom summits for years since 2001. And that's how we had the relationships with the resorts and everything to do the vaccine education summits. Now, he's really pushing. He has law practices in Honolulu now and in Arizona. And what he's looking to do, he wants to start another part. The past year or two, he's been pushing this. Was it Live and Let Live party? It's just, it's kind of a libertarian thing, but he thinks that's been bastardized, and he wants to start over in a new party thing. So our conversation tonight and tomorrow on the show, I want to get your guys' input. Is that what we need? Just another party? Is that going to fix it? What do you think?
Great question, dude. Great question. Guys, welcome to Unwanted, man.
I tried.
We're in it.
I had my party. They came after me. Mainstream media, everybody just shot all over my party, and I got infiltrated by like 6-7 different people, and it was it was fun.
So, guys, for people, we are live. Sorry. Just kind of giving you the heads up.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. And if you have any background noise, mute. If you don't have any background noise, don't worry too much about it. Just sometimes people have stuff going on in the background. The Union Unwanted, it is a show for any new listeners that was put together by Sam Tripoli, myself, from the Ripple Effect podcast, and Charlie Robinson from Macroaggresions, Sam obviously from Tinfoil Hat, and then our friend, which hopefully will be joining us tonight, Midnight Mike from OBDM show. And it is a show where we bring together people from all different backgrounds, all different researchers, content creators, thinkers, and we just bring minds together and share this information, share conversation. It became a community. It's become a community where we all support each other, help spread each other's work and information, and people network afterwards. So it's become a great thing. And hopefully, and today we always try to have a extra special guest, because I don't want to say special guest because they're all special guests, but a extra special guest, Dr. Judy Mikovits, who is it's great time to have her on, because obviously with all the censorship stuff going on, obviously with all the pushing of the vaccine, her story is more relevant than ever. And we also have some newcomers, which when you guys get a chance to talk, just jump in anytime you have a moment or you see an opportunity to jump in. But make sure, if you're new to the show, just give a little brief description of who you are and maybe your show or whatnot. But thank you, Dr. Judy, for being with us. We're all huge fans. Thanks Tim and Ernest and everybody else who helped me get in contact with you to come on. But I just think your story is more relevant than ever. So for people who might not, I don't know, who wouldn't know who you are in your story, but anybody who might not be familiar with your story, and also maybe get into the censorship aspect of it, because really people like yourself and many of us who've been talking about the vaccine issue and big pharma and all this stuff, we've seen this censorship stuff happen over and over again in the past. So none of this is really surprising to many of us. But can we get a little bit of just a brief description of your story and your background? And then if anybody wants jump in with questions for you or whatnot.
Oh, sure. Well, basically, a career scientific research scientist, National Cancer Institute, out in industry at university, 22 years at the National Cancer Institute. Well, in 2009, we isolated for the first time and associated with a disease, a new family of retroviruses, AIDS-like viruses, and basically published it in the journal Science after almost 8 months under review. And I had no idea then that the government was attempting to make it all go away, because they knew a lot that I didn't know. It did finally get published October 8th, 2009 in the journal Science, and it was accompanied by an opinion article about what this means, one new virus, how many old diseases. Well, over the course of about of the next 2 years until 2011, they hit hard literally from the day it came out. Mostly the UK started it, but the group that wanted to hide what chronic fatigue syndrome really was, myalgic encephalomyelitis, inflammation of the spine, the spinal cord and brain, hide that, and hide the fact that literally the blood supply and vaccines had been contaminated with this family of viruses, of mouse viruses, dozens, if not hundreds of them. And the most likely way they got into humans, and all of the studies showed between 4 and 6% of the controls were healthy people. The controls, 4 to 6% were infected worldwide, and that both in the UK and in the United States, it was clear with a couple of studies we did that it was the blood supply that and contaminated vaccines, polio vaccines, MMR vaccines, flu vaccines, contaminated not only with it was called XMRV because it was xenotropic, was the X, foreign. It was the most closely related to murine leukemia viruses, and those viruses are associated with neurological diseases, including Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all of that. It's a retrovirus. And so the big, oh my God, was the lab workers were seroconverting, meaning they were getting infected. It was a contagious cancer and neuroimmune disease family of viruses that were coming from contaminated vaccines and a blood supply that had been contaminated back to the days of HIV. So when HIV was isolated, Peter Duesberg and a number of other scientists said HIV didn't cause AIDS. And over the next, and really over the next few years, another virus, the reason so many men died in the first, or infected individuals died in the first few years, is they were almost certainly infected with both families of viruses, both types of retroviruses that took out different parts of the immune system, and they died really quick. Well, over the next 2 years, the government covered it up. I refused to renounce the data, and every piece of data told us more and more association. And I really believe the kicker, which is interesting with respect to what happened in the last week, is the kicker was we associated it with a disease called idiopathic thrombocytopenia. Well, on the data safety sheets of MMR vaccines, idiopathic thrombocytopenia, bleeding disorder, deadly platelet disorder that had long been associated with MMR vaccination in hot lots and things like that. And now you can pretty well put it all together that it's that family of viruses. And we also have an endogenous retrovirus called HERV-W that is the envelope alone of that family of viruses. So it cross-reacts our human, it's called the protein that is made is called syncytin. And what do you think's expressed in the coronavirus vaccine? And what do you think? I think COVID-19 really is it's weaponized HIV, XMRV, and of course the coronavirus is the ACE2 receptor. So when you put that in that vaccine and you express only the message and you stop it from being degraded the way your immune system would normally degrade it, because they clipped the parts, because RNA degrades really quickly in the blood. It's just not something that God allows to be floating around in your blood. It's a danger signal. It turns on, it starts a fire in your immune system, in your endocannabinoid system. Go turn off the fire and send fire trucks like chemokines trafficking to the sites of tissue injury. The expression of syncytin alone in 2004 was associated with multiple sclerosis. And in the clinical, in the trials, and the people who had been severely injured with the mRNA vaccines from Moderna and Pfizer, at least one person has gotten myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, inflammation of the brain and spinal cord that was marginalized by Tony Fauci and our government. A doctor, a 58-year-old doctor in Florida, died of ITP a few days ago. Within 2 weeks of getting the vaccine, the quick reaction, he developed ITP and died. That's idiopathic thrombocytopenia. And several in the trials got multiple sclerosis. And of course, Bell's palsy has long been associated with HIV and other retroviruses. So I think you could see, this is why the big, and so we wrote 3 books, Plague of Corruption, and a book, The Case Against the Masks. You can find them all. Theoretically, they're supposed to be sold at all major booksellers, but they're heavily censored right now. I can't even buy the book about the case against the mask, because wearing the mask will activate the expression of not only syncytin, your endogenous one, but the latent viruses that have been injected in the flu vaccines. And the data show that the flu vaccines drive the pandemic. And we know there are lots of gamma retroviruses and other RNA viruses, coronaviruses there. So I guess the big we all stumbled on was Plague of Corruption, which published April 14th of 2020, read like prophecy. And then, of course, pandemicseries.com, where you can see part 1, which came out May 4th, where Vicki Willis was literally supposed to be doing a promotional video for Plague of Corruption, which was actually completed and in press in the fall, I'd say October of 2019. So when you look at indoctrination and you see they hold event 201, which I had no idea about, but Mickey and others did, and then you see how they just wrapped it around. They've been doing this Plague of Corruption for 20 years. They know that the vaccines were causing MMR in the most susceptible populations, who happen to be Blacks and Hispanics and Blacks under 3 years old, if given MMR, were 4-fold more likely to get autism than white boys, which was high, even 2-fold. But again, it was associated very strongly with the vaccines and a contaminated blood supply, and we'd been lied to as a country and a world for decades, while the patients were stigmatized and denied treatment. The women were called crazy with chronic fatigue syndrome. Tony Fauci marginalized that, and now everybody's calling it long haul COVID. It's not long haul COVID, and you're going, this vaccine will kill that 6% of the world that's infected with these viruses. And I believe that's the intention. And they'll be cremated. You destroy the evidence, that it had anything to do with these viruses, or in fact that they even exist. They wiped them out of the literature. Real good job over the last decade of literally trying to destroy anybody who realized the truth. Killed Jeff Bradstreet. There's a whole chapter in the book, Scientists at Sea, how they murdered other people, including Brandy, Vaughan, and others. And Timothy Cunningham of the CDC, who saw the flu shot killing people a couple of years ago. And what were they getting? They were getting that horrible cough. They got the coronaviruses in those flu shots years ago, and actually cloned the viruses from the Spanish flu, the 1918 flu, cloned it out of people in Africa. I've got the publication, and put it in the vaccines, the ones they gave to the Italians in January of 2019, grown in dog cells. So it's pretty ugly out here right now, but that's the long and short of it. I hope that was good with words.
Well, and also share your story on the extent of censorship that interview. I mean, overnight, that documentary, or that interview with you with Mickey Willis, was everywhere, and then just as quickly it was disappearing everywhere. And Mickey Willis, when I talked to him on the Ripple Effect podcast, his show actually didn't show up. I was getting screenshots of iTunes, it wasn't there. So he was still getting censored even way after the height of the documentary. I'm sure you went through some serious censorship. Do you want to share some of that with us?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been censored really, as Ernie mentioned. Ernie was the only one who would talk to me. In our first book, not one government official has said one word. In our first book, Plague, literally walks you through the government corruption. So that was heavily censored. I was written right out of Science. immediately as if every paper I ever wrote was fraud. And that's the stories the book goes into, how they forced the retraction of our paper literally while I was hiding on a boat as they surrounded my house, a little bit like Roger Stone's, as we put that story at the end of Plague of Corruption. So yeah, heavily censored. I can't even buy. So how they did it on the case against the mask, that book is the Skyhorse, the publisher, shipped it to all the distributor, to Amazon, to Barnes and Noble. We're New York Times best-selling authors from Plague of Corruption, and kind of with that title, every major bookseller and airports and everybody else has to put our books up, and none of them are anywhere, and we can't get the book, The Case Against the Mask. But yeah, censored, taken down. I think it's called shadow banning when they make your book. If people search on Amazon or search engines for Plague of Corruption or any of our books, really, they don't come up. They don't come up as being for sale. One of my friends literally had to go take the ISBN number to force Barnes and Noble to order it, and Barnes and Noble wouldn't bring it into the store. They insisted to mail it directly to the person's house. So yeah, I mean, then you've got a New York Times bestseller. The book was literally sold. Plague of Corruption was sold out the first day it was available for sale. And again, still the most heavily censored Plandemic, the movie, but Mickey and others did it, like Brian Rose did a great job, freedomplatform.tv, to interview both Mickey and put the platforms together to get them out there. So you can still get all of these things. It's just not easy. And especially my passion right now is the mask, because this is really going to kill. It already killed a dear friend of mine, and they are going to kill a lot more people, especially the kids with autism, the kids they've injured. So yeah, I'm not a person that I'm really not out there at all. I was buried in a lab for 40 years, just loved what I did in isolating viruses and associating them with diseases and developing immune therapies and all kinds of treatments to help people. That's all I ever did. So the censorship is something to me that's amazing. Just even, I can't even take the falsehoods that are written about me off any of the sites. So I just don't like Wikipedia and things like that.
You think that's why we're seeing all this talk about new strains, because these masks and these latent viruses are going to start springing up and they need an excuse for them, sort of thing? Because it seems like inevitably it's going to start getting more deadly, and they're not going to say it's the vaccine.
Right. And well, and I have a paper that was published in October, or it was submitted in October 11 of 2011. I was fired September 29th, and they thought my entire lab was locked down, my entire career, everything was taken from me. And that's all what's in the story of Plague of Corruption. And if you just read the last chapter, it talks about how they tried to get Frank Rossetti to throw everything away and autoclave and burn all the samples. So in fact, the paper that was submitted and published with all of these viruses in the Vero monkey kidney cells, they're already in there. They're already out there. There are dozens of coronaviruses, including Ebolas and the pathogenic and non-pathogenic strains. The mask will, and the crippling of your immune system will allow the evolution of more pathogenic strains, because you're not allowing the virus to evolve naturally. And the normal human immune system, it's the family of the common cold. These are very labile viruses. So yes, I do think that's the game plan. So that's why it's so imperative that we stop it now and everybody get the masks off and refuse any kind of shot ever, because it's going to be seen. And I do believe, I've been asked several times about why President Trump did the warp speed, because I think I know he knew about all of the science, and I think he wanted the injury to roll out as quickly as possible so they couldn't shut it down. I could be wrong, or that the injury could be seen vaccine before, the cabal or whatever, the Biden-Harris, before they lock down more people and cause more injury. I think he really wanted, it's so clear right now, the injuries are the vaccine and nothing else. So they're playing their little game with the strains, but they're getting caught.
Yeah, I got a question. There's who is it? Charit Bhakti, a virologist, that come out and talked about the potential cytostorms, which is like, apparently it's like antibodies that lives in your liver, your lymph nodes, and so on, that could potentially, because of the COVID vaccine, that are creating these spike proteins and all this waste and everything that comes out of it. So they could potentially come and then attack and then cause a autoimmune response, which actually, I don't know if you heard about this. You probably have. The doctor that died in Miami, I believe it was, that died of an autoimmune response. If you can enlighten people
John,
a little bit.
That's what we were just talking about. The autoimmunity is called idiopathic thrombocytopenia. And so it's a platelet. And in fact, I wrote a slideshow, and that's what I literally just walked in the door from flying back from Health Freedom, Ohio. And I showed how the bleeding disorders, because platelets will create like 40 times more the cytokine storm you're talking about. So they're little, they're megakaryocytes. They're part of an immune response. And it's like really throwing a howitzer on things. And when your platelets are depleted, those kinds of cancers and bleeding disorders are a cause of death. So the cytokine storm, the damage is so great that it literally shuts down your whole system. So yeah, I put all of the autoimmune diseases and description of that ITP into and cancers caused by these viruses, and that will be caused and accelerated by this so-called, and in fact, David Martin, we did Dr. David Martin, we did a show last week with Sasha Stone and Rocco Galati, David Martin, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and I, and it was called Focus on Fauci. And in that particular discussion on what they were doing in playing this game, Dr. Martin made the very salient and important part that we've got to stop calling this a vaccine. The vaccines are legally defined to stimulate immunity and disrupt transmission. This is literally a chemical pathogen. It's a medical device, and therefore it doesn't qualify under the EUA or anything else. It's a medical device. You're injecting only the pathogenic part in an expression vector, and your cells become a factory for producing these autoimmune antigens, and it will be deadly. So we have to, and David Martin also said that we have to stop calling this COVID, it's Wu flu, because again, SARS-CoV-2 absolutely doesn't cause that disease, and we're being lied to, and the entire virus has never been isolated from a human and transmitted it to a human and shown by any criteria it's causative or associated with a disease by Koch's postulates or Hill's criteria. And that's what we did, and I've done my whole life with we did it with XMRVs, but HTLVs, HIVs, that all of the families of human retroviruses that are associated with diseases, you have to satisfy either Koch's postulates or Hill's criteria. The difference is mainly that it's unethical to inject the virus in people and see if they get the disease. But we know that in fact, most of the people infected, or at least that we're being told are infected with SARS-CoV-2, which there's still no evidence that says anybody's infected with it. And the PCR test is just a piece of a coronavirus. And this is what Dr. Bhakti explained very well in that hour-long interview. He's absolutely, totally right. You've got to isolate the entire thing, not pieces of it and clone it in a laboratory. That's not what exists in nature. And they know it. And that's a big part of the fraud being perpetrated on people. The test does not describe a clinical disease. You can't call this a pandemic because nobody's dying. You have to have a death rate of a certain amount, and you have to have an infectious agent. And neither of the two have been satisfied. They're saying a bunch of healthy people are cases and shutting down and locking down, and it's actually the masks and the flu shots driving disease and killing people as it has every year. And there's a lot of data to show the fraud of the CDC and all of that. You know, influenza disappeared in 2020. I mean, what a fabulous virus this is. It cured heart disease, cancers, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, even death from auto accidents. What a great virus, and everything. 22, the CDC normally classifies under the umbrella of flu, all causes of upper respiratory infections, including pneumonias, for which we have the Prevnar vaccines for 23 different bacterial pneumonias, and influenza. And this in 2020, only 22,000 people, according to the CDC, were pneumonia and influenza of all causes, and everybody else was labeled COVID and without any evidence to support it. Now in 2021, everybody's being called PIC. So forevermore, we're going to have pneumonia, influenza, and coronaviruses, and they're going to have a new vaccine and a new strain every year, just like they've done in the fraud in influenza. So vaccines. So the vaccines drive the disease. They create, you know, flu season, and now they've just added to the category and added to the fraud. And it will be deadly. There, I mean, it already is. So we've got to.
Ricky, this is one thing I wanted to make sure that she got in. That was a big revelation for me. When they talk about retroviruses all the time, you need to know what that is. RNA viruses are, you know, genetic redo you, turn you into something else kind of shot stuff that they're doing. So I need to, you know, Dr. Judy, when she comes back here, I want to make sure that she explains to all of you influencers and people that you can understand what that means, what a retrovirus is and what it does. When she explained that to me years ago and we could see what was going to happen, I'm like, that is deadly, dangerous, and freaking, was it Dr. Moreau's Island kind of stuff.
Right.
So,
and Ernie, actually, in the book Plague of Corruption, I only have the German volume in my house right now. It's censored, but you could see this cartoon. There's some in the book, A Plague of Corruption, there's some inset. And in this cartoon, Ernie's the one that got me to explain it so simply over the years. It's literally like the Bass-O-Matic from Saturday Night Live. You just run the mice or the animal cells that you're producing the virus in the conveyor belt, and you culture them with another type of, you know, like the Vero monkey kidney cell line. So you take the Mises pieces and you put it right there in this vat, this large fermenter, and then you just pull the stuff out and inject it directly into the most vulnerable in the society. So the difference, I'm just going to make it simple. The difference between a retrovirus and a coronavirus is that the retroviruses have a function, a gene called integrase. And that means it can integrate in the DNA and stay throughout the generation. So it stays there, and it has to be silenced and latent, and you have reservoirs and tissue reservoirs. And every time you activate the immune system, like with a vaccine, and drive that cytokine storm, you infect more and more and more cells. Only the family of retroviruses can do this, which is why when they say asymptomatic carriers, they know that the virus is not going to be cleared because it's been weaponized to include an integrase function. So yeah, that's the simplest way to say it. Our coronaviruses are enveloped, RNA viruses and retroviruses are enveloped, but the retroviruses have an RNA and a DNA blueprint, and the RNA is reverse transcribed to DNA, and then you literally cut open the genetic material and insert the virus, and every time the cell replicates, the virus replicates. So you've got to and you create your own little virus factories, and so that's what's going to be happening. This is going to be inserted into our genome, into the human genome from that drug. It's not a vaccine, from that drug, that medical device. And we're going to create pathos that can go through the pathology, disease that can go through the generations. And so, and really we won't have any idea the level of the devastation, but clearly the most vulnerable in our society will be the ones to die with even the first shot, just like that doctor did. Why that doctor? Nosocomial spread. Doctors and nurses, lab workers are exposed to everything. And that's chapter 7 of our first book, Plague. Oh my God, you mean all those sequences we saw in the 80s were real? The 70s or 80s, they used to just call them contaminants. And that's how they tried to take our work down, just saying our lab was contaminated with mouse PCR products. What is contaminated right now with PCR products is every lab in the world doing these and amplifying these viruses. And you can catch it by breathing it.
Dr. Judy, I wanted to ask you something that you share with these guys that, clear this up. Big Pharma, they do this. Certainly it's by intent, but intent to what? To make us perpetually sick so that we're dependent on them, or to change us at a genetic level to make us more or less something? Or both? I mean, what do you think it is?
Well, I think over the last 20 years, since HIV/AIDS, I guess it's longer than that, 26 years since 1984, when Tony Fauci and Bob Gallo played their little games and did this and perpetrated fraud. And you can watch them because they wouldn't let us use the drugs that would have helped, like natural products, type 1 interferon, peptide T. You can watch the Dallas Buyers Club or the band played on and see that. So they've been doing it the entire time. And then they use the toxic drug at too high a dose at the wrong time to take out, like hydroxychloroquine, and take all of those things out of our use. So then in the 80s, it was make us sick and get rid of the deplorables, the gays, the IV drug users, and prostitutes, whoever, was susceptible to HIV, and blame them and make them think their fault. Right now, it's cover up. Right now, it's depopulate and destroy. You will be sterilized. The gene syncytin from the gamma retrovirus we all carry, that envelope is necessary to have the placenta fuse to the uterus wall. So syncytia in virology is cells fused together. They form syncytia, and that's when you look under the microscope. That's how I say that there's a retrovirus being expressed. That's how we know how to isolate. You look under the microscope, and then you can see the patients that are forming syncytia, and you see the coagulopathies, the blood clotting, the problems. It's a nightmare. So in the 80s, it was, let's make people customers for life. Right now, everybody figured it out. Scientists, the world, everybody figured it out. Now it's kill as fast as possible and destroy the human immune system and sterilize as many people as possible.
Tina, I know you have a very important story I'd love to hear, and I think the rest of us would like to hear too. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. And thanks for letting me come on to tell it. I was good friends with Brandy Vaughan, who had learntherisk.org, who passed on December 7th. Unexpectedly. Her background is that she was working for Merck Pharmaceuticals, and they were selling the drug Vioxx years ago, which was killing hundreds of thousands of people. And she saw behind the scenes how they just continued to push sales, regardless of the findings that were happening. And so she realized how corrupted the industry was, and she got out of it. She felt like she had blood on her hands, but went on to live her life, had a baby, never had vaccinated her baby because she had, dove into that subject, but she wasn't speaking out back then. And then back in 2015, California was trying to pass a bill, SB 277, to take away our rights to exemptions there. And that's when I kind of jumped in to start speaking out. And the first time I dabbled in politics, and never again. And I ended up meeting Brandy through groups online. And I first started noticing her and paying attention to her because she was speaking out against the controlled opposition within the movement. And she grabbed my attention because I already was having a lot of intuitive feelings about some of the people in the movement who are like so-called leaders who would say, no, don't talk about, it being poison, or don't talk about it being toxic. Let's just talk about choice. And I would think, you can't tell. I wish someone had told me the truth, and I'm going to speak the truth. And so I already was kind of suspicious of some of these people, but had never heard of anything like controlled opposition. And one day, Brandy went into a group where it was a huge group in California, and she started to name names, call out the controlled opposition, and was like basically under fire because everybody was attacking her. Because some in the group, when they're known leaders, they become almost like celebrities in the movement, and you dare not say anything bad against these people. And I thought to myself, everything she says makes sense to me, and it's what I've already been feeling, and she's got no valid reason to be doing what she's doing right now unless it's the truth, because it's not going to gain her popularity. And so then I was taking on a rally at the Golden Gate Bridge in California with another friend of mine, Tessa, who had talked me into it, and I was feeling overwhelmed, and it was over my head what I was getting into, but nobody else had stepped up to take this on. And all of a sudden, Brandy Vaughan reached out to me and asked if I needed help. She said, I'll help get the speakers. I'll basically do forward some of the money to get the speakers and everything. And so I welcomed her to join us to help with that rally. And from then on, we became really close friends. And I worked with her on Learn the Risk right out of the gate as soon as she started that platform. And we became like family. We vacationed together, hung out together. And for Thanksgiving this year, she reached out to me and asked what we were doing for Thanksgiving, and I was awaiting becoming a grandma around that time, so we had no plans to leave. And I welcomed her to come, spend Thanksgiving, her and her son, with us. So we had a great time. We were, playing games, eating. Like, there were zero signs of her having any pain. She was herself. We talked about stuff about, Learn the Risk. We talked about the movement. Her website had been sabotaged not long before, and she was still trying to get the new one up and started. We talked about controlled opposition. We talked about people she still didn't trust, although she hadn't been as vocal anymore. But because it was out there already, she just kind of let that simmer down. But we had all these conversations. She was doing great. And 9 days later, she was found dead in her home. And as soon as she was found, it took about 24 hours before I found out about it. But there were people within the movement that she didn't trust that knew about it right away. And out of the gate, they got to the person that was with her son. They managed to get text messages on her phone that said something about her having a sore stomach. And they ran with this narrative that it's her gallbladder. Nothing to see here, it's her gallbladder. Well, back in December 2019, she had done a post. So just a year before her passing, she had done a post outlining if I were to pass away, an untimely death, and listed what she would want done. She said, I am not suicidal. I am in perfect health. Like, she detailed it. I would want to have fundraising done. I have a team of close friends that will look after this. And so I, out of the gate, started a fundraiser, and it got up to about $60,000. At the point of about $20,000, one of these people that I didn't trust, who had clawed into it quickly, she started reaching out to me and saying, oh, all that money has to go to the person that has her son. And I was like, no, that this is, if there's needs for him, up front, yes, of course, I'm going to take care of him first. But this is to get the private investigation taken care of. So they sabotaged that first fundraiser. The $60,000, I never saw a penny of it. that went away, and I had to start a new fundraiser. And I've had to unravel them basically trying to poison my name to the family in Europe that's on the son's father's side. And others in the local town that didn't know me personally, these people through the movement just got in there and immediately started to cause problems for me that I've had to like slowly undo and prove myself. She also made me the legacy holder for her Facebook page. So I've had to like throw that out to show she wouldn't give this to someone she didn't trust. And it's just been a lot, layers and layers of confusion and hurdles that I've been trying to overcome. But we are getting there slowly, and donations are back up to we're at about 40,000, I think, and we still need more. We are moving forward with the private investigation, and we're not going to give up. I mean, I'm working hard to honor the wishes that she laid out that she wanted to have happen in the event of her untimely death. And I don't buy the gallbladder story, not for a minute, because she was a very organic eater. She was with me 9 days before and had zero signs of pain. It doesn't add up. Anyone that has, critical thinking skills or can use some common sense can see that something is off here.
And what happened to the sorry to break in there, what happened to the Vioxx? Didn't they instate it or something after her death?
Yeah,
2 days
after her death, I started to hear about that. Yeah, that I think they've relabeled it, and that was coming out. I also have heard from people who've reached out wondering, I guess there's some lawsuits that are coming up, and I had people questioning me if she had been asked to testify, and they said even if she hadn't been yet, she probably was going to be asked to testify. So there's, layered reasons as to why her untimely death may have occurred.
Does anybody have questions for Judy or Tina? Anybody else who hasn't had a chance to chat yet?
I mean, I just want to say that we've seen a real history of anybody who pushes against the medical community authorities. Their life is in danger, whether it comes from trying to cure cancer or pushing against anything that makes these organizations that basically have, history back to Nazi Germany. If you're trying to stop them from making money, it seems to be like you have a bullseye on you. And it just really sucks that, a show like this where so many amazing people come together, that, that there's just a large portion of our society that just doesn't want to believe, because Americans are just human beings in general, are such trusting people. And, and the powers that be, they just prey on that trust. And they just know that human beings want to be trusting of authority, because it's just like you want to think we're all one big team, and that because they themselves couldn't do this, then these other people that they've never met in their life could do it. And that is the whole story of politics. That's the whole story of science. That's the whole story of the medical community. Obviously, there's wonderful people out here, people who've talked on the show today, people we've talked about in the show that work hard to get the truth out. And it's just amazing how we have everybody here has somebody in their life that just is like, stop talking about it. Shut up. I don't believe you. It's like, you know me. I've known you for decades. I have my, people that I love in my own family. I've known for their whole lives. And this people they see on the television telling them that have been caught lying 1,000 times. 1,000 times. Why you would watch the news after the Gulf of Tonkin and weapons of mass destruction is mind-blowing to me. But, people don't have the time. They don't have time like all the researchers here who have made time in their life to research the truth. They just don't have time. So they just believe the people on TV, and they don't believe their own family. It just blows my mind.
Well said. And Tina, can you get into some of the different prior threats that Brandy had faced, and then maybe also let people know where they can donate? I mean, I know I set up that link for you, bit.ly/learn-the-risk to make it easier. Otherwise, it was like 100 letters long. But
Right.
Can you also get into some of the dirty tricks that they used on Brandy while she was alive?
Tim, can you say put the lotion in the basket first real quick?
She has a video actually online. I can't think of the name of it now, where she goes through and explains what they did to intimidate her. They had broke into her house and they moved her. They didn't steal anything. They just did things to basically intimidate her. They moved her computer where it was hidden on the microwave into the middle of her kitchen floor. They left a stool by one of the windows near the front, which was the only window that had the blinds open, as like, you know, a sign to show that they're watching her. In a lot of her videos, she used to say that she felt like a sitting duck, you know, just waiting for them to do something. And they left a statue of a duck on her patio table in the backyard. She's had, her accounts had been sabotaged more than once, her bank accounts. She's had the website under attack more than once as well. There was one time I think we were on the phone and she was just going back to her car and she panicked because in the car door, there was like a playbill from a play, and I can't think of the name of the play that it is, but it was basically a picture of a noose from this play. And I said, well, does anybody else have that on their car? Thinking like it has to be something else. She said, no, hers was the only car that had this playbill tucked into the door handle of her car. So yeah, she was very, very, had post-traumatic stress disorder and was, you know, she lived kind of paranoid because, well, rightly so, she always felt like she was under attack. And then it is under,
sorry.
Oh, sure.
A lot of us here do a lot of research on what conspiracies are behind some of the events that we see, but all the research I have to do is absolutely third hand by a long way. And you're seeing this stuff in action. She saw this stuff in action. Do you have a sense, you use the word they, I use the word they all the time, but they can mean different kind of subgroups of a bigger group. Did you have a sense of who they really are and like how far and wide they went, how they coordinated? Is it corporation, just the big pharma, or do you feel like there were government entities that were complicit or media that doesn't pick this stuff up? Do you have a sense of how it really works?
Well, I think all of the above. It's all linked together, and there are key players in every corner of what's going on. When I say they, I'm usually meaning, you know, those connected to the pharmaceutical industry, but that does spin into, when I say controlled opposition, there are people within the movement that we can't trust. They are in there. They do a great job. They're great leaders. They always tend to have the funding to be traveling everywhere. They are great speakers, but there will be something about their messaging that is a little off. It will be a little bit confusing, so that, you know, they'll use choice instead of, you know, just really explaining and educating on what's in a vaccine so people can make the right choice. And then, yeah, and it's, even with this investigation that's going on, I went to Santa Barbara to the sheriff's department, and I left my name and all my information, and I said I had already called and left a message, and the lieutenant that I was talking to says, you mean that like the leading sheriff hasn't reached out to you yet? He even seemed surprised, and I said no. So I left my name and number, and he goes, okay, he'll get back to you. Still hasn't got back to me. I mean, and then they put an article out into the media saying, oh yeah, there will be a thorough investigation. I know firsthand there's no thorough investigation going on. There's someone that's in her house cleaning things out of her house. They've never taken the cell phone it's not being investigated yet. That's what they put into the media. So yeah, and there's, you know, several layers of key people that will, you know, push forward messaging that isn't the truth.
Yeah, well, it seems like media, like I'm, you know, looking at mainstream media all the time, especially when I'm stuck at working like I'm right now. You know, it's just so blatant. Like on the one side, they never ask any questions, you know, around, you know, the vaccines. Like I haven't heard anything about the PCR test cycles being 45 here in Manitoba. I actually got a proof, you know, to prove to people that it is. You don't see that at all. Like CNN, AB, whoever is like a mainstream channel in any country, like I watch like 5-6 different countries, they don't ask any questions outside. And I actually, like, if Josh Sigurdson was here, he actually saw this firsthand. There was an interview with the Prime Minister of Canada about, it was, what was it? Oh, carbon tax. And they actually handed out the questions to the to the media for him to be asked pre-screened questions. So it's just so blatant. But I think they're doing that on a purposeful level to actually make us become violent, because there was a great quote today that I heard. If you remove free speech, the only free speech left is violence. And I think that's a thing that they really would like to see, because then there's more kills. Yeah.
Those that make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable, is the JFK quote. Before I have to go here pretty soon, but I wanted to make sure Dr. Judy and maybe Tina had something to comment on the censorship, because this has been, of course, Dr. Judy refused to be censored, and I'm going to write a book, and her and Kent Heckenlively did a book, and I got a book, and another book, and we got books. But I'm wondering what they see the future. We've been working hard, you guys know, about our IPFS stuff and so on. But with the pandemic, they're playing whack-a-mole with that, and we put that up. It got downloaded a billion times because you made the files available. And it keeps getting worse. Parler just went off because they're dumb enough to try and use Amazon's cloud for their memory storage, I guess. And then you have all these others. And it's gotten to the point to where we have to do something else. Even this is on YouTube and other platforms. There are some platforms that we're like Float, we're working with a lot to try and keep it decentralized. There's other options that we have, but it's going to continue to get worse. And I'm wondering if Dr. Judy, you've been talking with people or been presented with other alternatives, or you see a future or a philosophy of, we're working hard on it. But if we just keep whistling past the graveyard on this, you're not going to have a voice, and certainly it's not going to be shared with anyone. And whatever you do have gets censored, you get deplatformed, you get demonetized. And it's amazing to me. I'm an older guy, but for a lot of the younger people in this, they're so dependent on these platforms, they can't even think of anything else or to do anything else. They just wither away. And
Ron Paul is gone from Facebook. Sorry to interrupt, but he actually got banned today.
Of course he did.
And
this is neon flashing. Somebody told you so. Oh yeah. Well, it was one of them. Okay. So I'm just like this. So Dr. Judy, as you're talking to people and being censored heavily on such an important death, dying, and destruction issue, have you been presented with alternatives, or you just go, hey, wherever I can go, and you just keep hammering it? Is something risen up to your attention?
You're muted, Dr. Judy.
Yeah, I just keep playing whack-a-Judy. I just go everywhere and I talk everywhere, and they take it down, but like we were in Ohio, and people for Health Freedom Ohio over the weekend just got back, and and people do write me. Yesterday, a guy named Jason Sullivan launched a new thing, MAGA Info, MAGAINFO.TV, and he had a call about it on news servers, new secure offering live platforms. So people are offering platforms and working hard to set up independent platforms. I just keep talking the best I can and do everything I can to get the. I'm really a scientist, and I'm just.
This show will
I have something to add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Tina. I was just going to say this conversation is going to be on Float. It's on YouTube right now, but it will be on Float. It's going to be on Odyssey, Library. All our shows are on all those platforms. So, they can take it down one spot. It will exist as a podcast, an audio version of it. So you can get it on Spotify, any podcast app. We're the same thing. We put it everywhere. So that way you stop us in one spot, you'll be able to find it somewhere else. So just to let people know.
So what I was going to say is learntherisk.org. The reason I was so behind what she was doing is I had already thought of doing something similar, but not as big. But there are tools on Learn the Risk that are information cards. You can either print out flyers or buy things from online that have the information of what's in a vaccine, and people need to start getting out there themselves and doing it. It shouldn't just be a few people that are leaders. Everybody has to figure out their own leader inside themselves. If they're too shy to go approach somebody in person, then stick a card or a flyer on someone's car next to you every time you park your car. Stick a card inside of a gas station credit card slot every time you get gas. If everybody that is aware of the truth and awake to the truth started to do these things, we can touch people, the hearts and minds of people, one person at a time in day-to-day living. We don't need these echo chambers online where we're all repeating to the same followers most of the time. We get a few new people, but I think we really need more people to take what they're learning and get out there and touch the people that they're in a community with. We need to wake up our friends and our neighbors around us, and they need to hear that message usually 8 to 15 times before they're actually going to have their aha moment. So the more people getting out there and doing it instead of waiting for someone else to do it, and you can do it at any level. If you're shy, then you just, you put it on a car. I hand out people, I see somebody, and now it's about masks. We'll do it on any subject, but I'll hand a flyer about the masks to someone at a store. I just try to relate to people that I'm, coexisting with in my day-to-day world. There's too many people that are waiting for someone else to take the lead when we have to start stepping it up ourselves, I think, in our own communities.
Saturday we made hundreds of signs, and we have a lot of different, sayings and, graphics and so on. But what do you guys think they should say? It's getting, we have one says the
government is non-essential.
Yeah.
Boom. And I think Derek's making that one on the laser you came up with on the Telegram. I think that's already being done. But, it's how hard is the message? Like things like they stole your vote so they could steal your money. Well, that doesn't really have anything to do with the vaccines, but, they're killing you with vaccines so they can take all your stuff. I mean, something, we need to be, I don't know if it's time to get really edgy. At what point do you go, man, it's on? I would be interested in some of the ideas that you guys have for signs, because we're making them. We're doing it. We taught them how to do displays, digital projectors on the, different kinds of vinyl. It's waterproof waterboard that we use, waterboard, and you trace it out and you cut it out. And we have over 450 yards of material that's 5 feet wide that we put this stuff on. And it's this poly stuff that they make sandbags out of so they don't rip. And we put them on chain link everywhere. So then we have the 18 by 24 yard signs with the stands. So but if you come up with the idea, we'll make, one of you guys got crew people you're going to go make signs. Hell, I will get the stencil done for you for nothing and ship it if you'll use it. Just like with John. John had a good idea. Government is non-essential. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I'm going to do that one. So it's time to be on the street, like Tina Marie is saying, but it's not just, there's a lot of things that are resources out there, but you could also have your own idea that's more unique to where you live. And that's what the Love Bus is. We've been doing this in Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Michigan, Washington State, spend a lot of time here in Arizona. And within a couple of weeks, we'll be going to Colorado, then Austin, Houston, and then Boca Chica to watch a Starship go, because I can. But the main thing is signs. We have cards. We have all kinds of stuff. You guys come up with it. We have some resources to help you spread this. That's what I'm doing. So if you guys got a good idea and you have some people that will make them or distribute them, homie's your new best friend.
Yeah. I like COVID is the flu with a better publicist, which I can't take credit for. So, somebody else at Compound Media thought of that, but I was passing out stickers all week in DC that said that.
Again, what was it?
That's a good one.
COVID is the flu with a better publicist.
That's great.
I got a list here, guys. So a few of these are already t-shirts on our website, but Megan, one of the hosts of our show, came up with "You Can't Inject Health." That is just classic right there.
That's good. See?
Yep.
Publisher at freedomsphoenix.com. Start sending it. Publisher
we got a whole bunch.
freedomsphoenix.com. I'm all over it.
Yep. What is it about freedom that you don't understand? What is it? Come on.
I think Chrissy came up with on the last season of the Unwanted. Don't trust the science. Was that?
Yes. Don't trust it.
Oh, there you go. See,
sorry, Judy.
You guys, I got to go, guys. I got a dinner appointment. I'm glad we had Dr. Judy. Is she still on? Is she still here?
Yep.
Dr. Judy.
I'm taking notes as fast. You know me, I write, Ernie.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on, I'm on it, and Tina Marie's already seen us doing this stuff, and a lot of the guys, I'm so glad that your time has come. Dr. Judy, there was never a doubt in my mind. In 16, we started doing this because I knew that she was a hero to humanity. And she has so much information, so much understanding, but you got to understand enough to even ask her the specific questions to understand the science of what the hell is going on. Because I guarantee what they're telling, trust the science. One, it's not science and they're just BSing you. But if you understand what's happening, you see we are under attack. Humanity is under attack, and this is global. This is, all this soft kill here, conspiratorial, here they come kind of stuff. And you want to know who they are? Everybody know who's they? Let me tell you who they are. There are those that want to just be left alone, and there are those that just won't leave them alone. That's who they, them, those are. So when I refer to they, them, those, it's the guys won't leave me alone. So I got to go, Dr. Judy, you're a hero. Tina Marie, keep doing what you're doing. All you guys, whatever I can do to help you, I'm on it. You just let me know, and we'll get you some signs made. And John, yours is coming, man.
Okay.
See you, Ernie.
I just want to say, after hearing Dr. Judy and Tina Marie, it's like, if anybody thinks this is about money or power, you're crazy. They have all the money and they have all the power. I know some of us are proud conspiracy theorists, and there's some people that don't like that name, and I totally understand it. But I'm also into spirituality, and for me, man, this is a spiritual war, and they really want to clamp down on our souls and our happiness and our beings and our families. It has nothing to do with. They got all the money. They'll never spend the money that they have in 1,000 lifetimes. They'll never. They have all the power. Look at what they've done.
They could print it.
Yeah, I mean, they can print it forever. It just doesn't matter. This is about spirituality and how special we are and where we live and what we're here for. We're all, if you look at a lot of these spiritual, thoughts, these ancient knowledge, we're all gods having a human experience right now. And we're here to learn so we can become one with the universe. And they don't want that. They don't like that. They made deals with low frequencies. They're low frequency demons, in my humble opinion, not to get too weird, but that's my belief. And they want us to join them. And when we get into this stuff, we start turning on television, and all we do is we just eat this junk food. It's killing our souls, man. And when I hear people like this, and the brave people both spoke today, our friends who are here and our friends who are lost, it's just like, it's a spiritual battle, man. It's a spiritual battle. It's not about money. We got to stop focusing on that they want the money. They want the power. They want our souls, man. That's my God honest belief.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why some of the most vocal people have been religious people, because when you believe in good, you also believe in evil. And I think some people don't see that. They don't see that, that there are people out there who willingly, they know what they're doing, and they're doing it because they want control, they want power. Like you said, when you have all the money, what's the next best thing? Like something else, you have to get your fix somewhere else. You're that drug addict that needs to, it's like, well, money doesn't do it anymore. Material things doesn't do it anymore. Now it's power. Now it's control. Now it's manipulation. It's molding society as a whole. I mean, think about the power that Dr. Fauci, the power trip he's on, where all he did was recommend masks, and now every idiot in the world is wearing one. Like, think about the psyche, of Dr. Fauci, like how the power trip he must be on because of all this. I mean, knowing that all he has to do is go on some stupid morning show, suggest something, and every idiot in the world just starts doing it. I mean, we all know people who complain about the asshole boss, and then the second he gets promoted, he becomes that asshole boss. Like, we're all capable of letting power get to our heads, so one way or another. So, I mean, now take that and times that by 1 billion. So before I go on a long rant, because I'll get passionate and upset about this, I know Monica and Chrissy have been waiting to jump in and ask some questions. If you guys want to jump in,
you can jump in as well.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of they got all the money, I think that's something to take into account in 2021. And I don't think that Float or Library or Odyssey or any of these centralized places can be considered a safe home. I think it's time for us as content creators to start thinking about how we're going to do it. I mean,
decentralization.
Libsyn right now is positioning to be bought by Spotify. And now I don't know what that's going to do to Libsyn's terms of service, but it's going to happen because it's just a matter of time until Google or Spotify or somebody pulls out their checkbook and buys the place that you think is a safe home. So, I mean, we've kind of committed to make 2021 the year that, you know, we've already had our websites on our own servers for a couple of years. We're migrating all the audio onto our own servers. We'll be running dual RSS feeds for a couple of months while we position to switch over. That includes our chat servers. And you know, in the next 3 months, that's going to migrate to our own private server, which nobody really thinks about. But I think those chat servers are the most important thing, because when we're all kicked off of Twitter and Facebook and Discord, which I think Sam got nuked today, if I heard correctly, all of a sudden, we're going to lose this MailChimp's kicking people off. So now when Grimerica has a new RSS feed because Libsyn got bought by Spotify and then we got nuked, I've got no way of even telling people what that is because they can't find me in iTunes anymore. So they need a super specific link. And when it happens, it's going to be too late. So if you're not thinking about that now, it's time to start thinking about that. Another thing we set up today is our own Mastodon instance, and we'll just start running with that. And it's a bit of an expense, but if we don't give our listeners someplace to go that isn't Twitter or Facebook or Discord, then they're not going to go there. And we're just going to keep taking them from one place to the next place until that's not okay anymore. And I think that's kind of the bug in the internet, where we're all supposed to be our own sort of private nodes. I mean, we'll buy a server and stick it in a closet here if we need to. And you could have those in a couple listeners' places all around the world if you have to. And I think if 2020 showed us anything, it's time for all of us to really start thinking long and hard about that, because I would be fucking shocked if all the people on this call right now still have social media presence in 12 months.
To
to that point, we're in
the process right now of building a website that's going to serve as kind of an aggregate for censored media. So no matter what the subject, if there's something that is deemed like too dangerous for whatever mainstream platform, we'll be in touch with those content creators and hosting their stuff on that site.
Also Ernest that just left, he has Freedom Phoenix, which is actually like totally off the touch of anybody that's having a centralized data center somewhere. So as well, there's I think what needs to be happening is and I voiced this opinion when we had Library and Float and everybody on, because I know that I think Odyssey and Library does have Amazon AWS servers. So we need to try to somehow crowdfund, a data center somewhere. I built data centers a couple of times. We need to have our own data center where we can store our own information. I know that they could still sabotage the ISPs as well, but who knows what's going to happen. I have a last thing, I wanted to go into back to the medical field and ask Judy Mikovits a question. And this, I think, is probably one of the more important ones, because I looked at, the data on the flu season, but also for Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere, where they get a lot of sun and a lot of heat. What I found was an interesting, I look at economic trends. What I found was there's a substantial amount of increase, from about November till February, March, when it comes to the flu season, and now also COVID, of course. But if you go down south, closer to the Italy, Spain, you could go into the southern US states, you actually see it's the hottest seasons where people spend most of their time inside. So I wanted to question you, Judy, about the vitamin D and the importance to the immune system.
Well, yeah, the vitamin D controls 300 different immune reactions and counting. We learn more about the polymorphisms in the receptors literally every day. So, the take out the vitamin D started decades ago when they said, oh, wear all that toxic shit on your skin. Every time your kids, from the second they're born, keep them out of sunlight. You know, you can't do in a pill what you can do with the sunlight, and you don't put the, you know, the sunscreen and all that crap on you because you start from day one crippling your immune system. Now, the GC-MAF, gamma globulin macrophage modulating factor, the MAF is activating because it was named badly in the days of HIV/AIDS. That's a vitamin D receptor modulator that was used and discovered by the Japanese back in HIV days. It was hammered. This was one of the reasons the government went after Jeff Bradstreet and ultimately killed him too, because they don't want you to realize that you need vitamin D and vitamin C and zinc and minerals. Our soil is totally depleted of zinc and minerals. So we've got to get mineral, you know, literally mineral seawater. And those are the kinds of resources we're putting together with what people need to get all the micronutrients, because you just can't take pills to make it work, because we have feedback loops that make sure, you know, things like, you know, vitamin D works. So for instance, the vitamin D receptors and the polymorphisms in blacks are such that, or people that live near the equator in the heavy sun are such that their vitamin D receptors act like resistors. One molecule is 0.001 molecule. But if you're in Sweden and you're in Minnesota and you're in some of the places where it's really dark a lot of the time and cold, then you act like an amplifier. So you have and it really matters, because when you switch them around, it becomes toxic. So this is also reasons why, you know, there are different responses in the different microbiomes and virome communication. We know that. So yeah, vitamin D is critically important, but it's not go out and get more pills, even though we should all be taking that right now, because most of us are depleted. But what we really want to do is get out in the sunshine. But of course, we're not allowed to do that if we're staying in our houses and or whatever else is going on. So there are a lot of things that go into it. And this is how we're being lied to. And this is why the FDA has been totally part of the plague of corruption for my entire 40-year career, because from the first day I walked in there, they stopped everybody from getting the natural interferons, the natural products, the hyperbaric oxygen, and pushed everything towards the drugs. And this is what it is shown so clearly. And so, you know, yeah, I mean,
are supplements better than anything? Better than nothing?
They're better than nothing, certainly. But you'd rather liquid supplements if you can have liquid supplements. I work with formulators like Dr. Daniel Newsom, Nuzum, or Dr. Chris Shade of QuicksilverScientific.com. He's got a glutathione spray, and he's got both of these two people, and I can type in the contact information. You know, they have the right formulations for COVID or Wu flu or anything else you want to call these things. And that we've always had, you know, these opportunities in hyperbaric oxygen, natural glutathione. You know, we have to supplement, because one of the components of glutathione, it's only 3 amino acids, and the last one is glycine, and glycine is glyphosate. So now you're eating such toxic food, you don't make enough glutathione, so you become more susceptible. Put on a mask, you deplete the interferons, you deplete the glutathione, and then basically all we do is take a healthy person and turn them into an AIDS patient. You immune compromise them with the mask and the injections, and then the toxins just basically, and the viruses just overwhelm them. Now, all the adjuvants, everything else they put in, but yeah, supplements are better than nothing, and we keep them on hand. Zinc, zinc. I think I put it. If you tap an email here into the chat room, I'll email the slideshow I gave yesterday. That shows you at the end, we show you supplements, we show you things that you can buy, that you can take. We show you solutions, because I'm sick of talking about the causes. We know what they're trying to do. I just want to offer everybody solutions, and they're all out there. So,
Doctor, can I ask you a question? Now, is is AIDS a virus, or is it like just a state of your immune system? Like,
It's a state of your immune system. Was it Steve that asked that?
it was Sam, the good-looking one.
A good-looking one. Okay. So, no, it's AIDS, and this is really important. This is what I've been saying all along. SARS-CoV-2 is not COVID-19. The virus is not the disease. AIDS is an acquired immune deficiency. You can acquire it from a lot of toxins and a lot of combinations of things. I call it acquired endocannabinoid immune deficiency because we've been kept from natural hemp products and natural cannabinoids, which are the dimmer switch on the inflammation. And I put all of that into that slideshow I gave yesterday.
So if let's say I'm partying too much, let's say, I've heard theories that the party scene, the poppers, we've all heard that Joe Rogan episode with the doctor. So let's say I'm out, I'm partying, I'm doing that stuff, and I go get tested. Would it show that my immune system is low, and that's why I have AIDS? And if maybe 2 days later I gone when my immune system's up, then I would not have AIDS?
Well, yeah, it's acquired immune dysfunction, and it's
is that permanent though, or is it just a state?
No, it's a continuum. It gets worse and worse and worse. So the virus, triggers the flame. It turns on inflammation. Inflammation is at the heart of disease. The middle of that word is flame. When you can't turn off the flame because you don't have healthy endocannabinoid system, or you have so many toxins in your toxic food, then you just have this, you're heating. Autoimmunity simply means you can't recognize self from non-self and you start attacking your own tissues. That's why you don't inject animal tissues into you, because you're going to say, wait a minute, that syncytin gene looks too much like mine. And then you don't know the difference because it's good and you start attacking yourself. So autoimmunity isn't your fault, and endogenous viruses aren't your fault if they're aberrantly expressed. It's you've destroyed your entire immune system, and we do it in many ways, like not getting the right nutrients, and it's been over generations, and it's not something that's easy to correct. But
can you come back from that? Like, let's say I stop doing all this stuff that's causing my immune system to be bogged down. Suddenly I'm not like that, and I go back. Would I not have AIDS or the immune system problem?
Correct. That's what we talk about in our book. HIV does not cause AIDS. You can have all the HIV in the world, and if you have a healthy immune system in the key parts that we know, you can have it circulating all the way through your body, and you won't ever get sick if you don't have the crippled immune system. AIDS is the disease. COVID-19 is the disease. The D means disease. It's not the virus. And they're using, this is why I mentioned that earlier, what Dr. David Martin said. We got to stop using their terms. That's not a vaccine. It doesn't enhance your immune system and prevent transmission. It makes you sick. It's a disease engine is what you're doing. And so that's why, I'm going to I wanted to tap the slideshow. I see one email there. So I'll tap the slideshow to you, a couple of them in there, and show you what I said yesterday, because this is exactly what I'm saying. And we taped this, and I can talk to, this is, a good place for Scott Shoemaker, the one of the leaders of Ohio Health Freedom, because Bobby Kennedy was there talking, Jack Lyons Weiler was there talking the science and the legal and trying to understand this. So people are waking up. It's just, we have to do it one at a time, as Tina was saying. But I don't mind that. I don't wear out. I get discouraged every now and again, but then I just keep going, because the data are clear, and we can, once we all see it, it's network marketing. That's what we are. We're not big business. We're network marketers. If each of us reach 3 people a day, and as Tina just said, and show them that card, and then you see when people wake up, they don't want to And then you just educate them, you empower them. If you empower them, then Satan doesn't win. To your point, Sam, all Satan has to do to win in this is separate you from the love of God, and that's each other. So we're not going to be separated. We just have to keep talking. We just have to trust each other and go out there and just keep trying to learn and stop practicing. So yeah, we do. They blamed it on the poppers, and even Bobby even gave that talk the other day, and he started talking about that. So back in the 80s, it's, oh, they do all those drugs. Oh, they're in all those bathhouses. They're exposed to everything. And yes, that contributed to crippling their immune system. But stopping it doesn't help if you've already done the tissue damage to the point where your immune system can't recover. And that's where the big lies were. They let the people with the HIV infection have their T cells, their adapted immune response destroyed. So when the numbers went below 200, which is like 10 times less than you really need of T cells to function, to communicate between your cells, then they started the drug. And by then it's too late. You don't have an immune system. You can't respond. So yes, you can come back. And one of the important things is you hear me coughing in chapter 7 of the book, it's very clear the lab workers got infected. The doctors and the nurses are infected. The doctor died of ITP. We don't expose ourselves to things, and we certainly don't immune activate or inject, because we're all infected with these things. You hear people in Australia, oh, they're testing positive for HIV. That's not false positive, folks. It's you woke up the dormant infections. And so if you wake up the dormant infections, they damage your immune system. Silent, they do nothing. It's not their presence, it's their expression. And that's what we have to help people do, is keep them quiet. And they're co-infections. Why do you think ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine work? Because you take out the parasites. So you don't cripple every aspect of your immune system. You go over here and you take out all the parasites, and you tell the immune system, go function. How did Dr. John Fankhauser stop the Ebola outbreak when the doctor got killed? Got infected, Kent Brantley. And we saw the CDC play their game in 2014, where they flew that plane and everybody was in their suits, and oh no, Ebola is going to take over everything. Well, what he did was he took a strong, healthy doctor who had clearly been exposed and was probably infected, and he gave him hydroxychloroquine. He infused saline. He gave him fluids. He infused salines and minerals, and then he put him in a quiet place and prayed for him to calm him down, because it's deadly, and fear is the most powerfully immune suppressive thing you do. And then he develops immune response. Yeah, he got pretty sick, but he survived. And there was one little boy who survived the outbreak in Liberia, that 21,000 people were killed. It was driven by vaccines and Fauci and Gates, as we know. But one little boy, so John gave him some serum, because the little boy recovered, figured he'd had some antibodies. Give him some help. We're giving the convalescent serum. There's so much we can do. But we're not allowed to think. We're not allowed to talk. And when you write these books, that was one of the things I was going to mention about what Tina was saying. I experienced the same kind of things that Brandy experienced, and we wrote them down in our book, Plague of Corruption. But that actually happened before I got jailed for months. They did those kinds of things that they were doing to Brandy, where they let you know they're going to get you, and they're hunting. And we put it all in the book, but we didn't put it in the first book. We put it in the second book because we didn't understand it at the time. So by writing it down, and I've got terabytes of hard data everywhere, and nobody can do anything about it, because all the data's there. And that's what the books give you, a level of safety. I've never really been afraid of anything since we escaped on the boat. That was the day they were going to kill me, the first chapter of our book, Scientist at Sea. And that it was like, get out of here. And I was taught, because I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I'm an identical twin. And my sister had a top security clearance in the Pentagon. And so I was taught I was taught how not to use the same, not to go to the same place, not to do the same thing twice, to drive around the block 4 times if it to the right or 4 times to the left if you think people are following you. I memorize license plates. You know, I can tell you anybody that wasn't in that parking lot yesterday. And this is, you know, it's sick. I've had to do that since I was a kid. My stepbrother was the park policeman that found Vince Foster dead. So he knew about Killery before most of the word. And he knew he didn't kill himself. So it's just, you know, we have to trust each other and just do this. And I know that fear is palpable when you're in it. But you know, they're going to get you if they're going to get you. And as Brandy told me a couple of times, and I know you know this, she said, oh, I'll get you from below. I'll get you from the other side. Because now she's that angel up there with that energy. We appreciate that energy and we know how to win this game. That's just the best I can say is, yeah, we have all this natural healing and we've had it all along. We never had to have that AIDS epidemic. We never had to have that Ebola or the Zika or the, you know, and the one man that has to go down is Tony Fauci. It's not a virus doesn't know if you're a Democrat or a Republican or a rich man, a poor man, you know, they don't know. It's destroy the immune system. And some of these hot lots of vaccines, they're so loaded with the garbage, and these kids' immune systems are already so depleted they can't do anything about it. And adults like me, that doctor, he's been exposed his whole life. So the ITP and they make doctors and nurses get flu shots every year, or at least for the last 5 years. And that's what Timothy Cunningham knew. I mean, those flu shots have been getting so heavily contaminated. It's just, I worked in the vaccine court, so I saw the people dropping like flies. And that's when you see the injuries that precipitate the fall. So that, I mean, that was the most horrific thing I've ever experienced, is that the corruption in that vaccine court, that's controlled by the government, and they know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it. It has nothing to do with money, as Sam said. It has to do, they're going to decide who lives and who dies. It's a Holocaust.
Anyone who hasn't asked the question or who have been very politely waiting, I know with these big calls, it's hard to get everybody in here, but anybody else who hasn't had a question might want to take this opportunity to ask.
Me. Okay, tell me if this is a stupid question, but like, we see all these nurses and doctors getting like proudly Instagramming their vaccines and shit. It's like, I don't know, if they were smart, would they be getting a fake vaccine, or are they just getting the real vaccine, the real killer, you know, generational fucking up vaccine like we all are? And then the powers that be don't care if nurses and doctors die. They just want to get the numbers down.
Yeah, I think the nurses and doctors, and I have data to support it, they're being brainwashed. Medical school is just big pharma brainwash. They don't get training in vaccines. They're told they're safe and effective, and it's all wonderful, just the way salespeople and people in big pharma are lied to about what the data really is. So yeah, they think they're doing the right thing. They firmly believe it. And yeah, they're going to kill themselves. And it's so, and the doctors, the nosocomial spread is the way it goes, through the healthcare workers, through the lab workers. And we saw the injury. We saw how, and I put it in the book, half my friends in cancer research are dead because they were working in biosafety level, and I'm only 62. They were working in biosafety level two with mice and all this stuff and gene therapy and doing the same thing. The gene therapy vector, the adenovirus vector, is what's in this vaccine, expressing the pathogen, you know, and so the vector alone can cause problems. And we're just told, oh, it's just harmless. It's just another thing. And so this is, you know, it's a straw that breaks the camel's back. You know, it's not the day you get it, and the timeline. So what you see is accelerated aging, accelerated cancer. We've got little girls with AML, acute myelogenous leukemia. It's a disease of old people, and Gardasil can cause AML because of the disruption of the myeloid component. I mean, this is where you have to have been stupid like me and spent all those years hanging out with Frank Rossetti and thinking about stem cells and viruses and how they do things. And so I was lucky enough to, when I got infected with the XMIRVs, caught them through aerosol transmission, have a whopping amount of virus in my immune system. And I was in a plane under oxidative stress. I was in a plane.
They're coming to get you.
Under oxidative stress today, and they tried to make me wear a mask. I wear a silver copper mask because it's antimicrobial. It's somewhat helpful. I won't get sick. I can breathe through it. I can pull it down. But all of those mask holes, wearing those masks, they're killing people. They're spreading disease. They're going to make you sick, and they're going to make you angry or fearful, as they always make me angry. You know, it's just, and so we have to find a way to keep our balance, to keep our joy, to stay happy, and not let it bother you. And so when I had to wear it a little bit of the time, I had to buy a first class ticket because I'm just going to keep eating and drinking the whole time. You know, you've never seen anybody eat 8 almonds that slowly in a 4-hour.
Oh, I'll sip a coffee my whole flight. I'll be like, man, I'm really slow at drinking this, you know.
But when I flew out to DC last week, when I left from Phoenix, the United flight attendant who gave the, just opening speech, it was the most condescending, infantilizing thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And he was, I'm not kidding. He's going, and don't think you can get away with just slowly sipping and like dictating how people ate and drank on the airplane, like he had the authority to do that, and the just overwhelming smugness that he iterated all of this with. It was nauseating.
Yeah, all day long. That's why they kicked me off of United. I think the pink Trump hat, the 1776 shirt that was blue, the I do not comply button, and the red jacket and white pants. I think that had something to do with it, but that flight attendant just targeted me.
People just have Stockholm syndrome.
And she said, exactly. And they want to make you mad. I had the copper mask on. And she just said, oh, no, not that mask. You have to wear our toxic mask. And I'm like, no, you're not a medical professional. But I literally sat on my hands. So I turned this book, I pulled this book up on my phone called Thriving in Babylon, which was written by one of our pastors. We can't just survive. And I just have to learn to live like Daniel. Yes, my Lord, knowing who I'm talking to, because I was just going to rip her throat out after a while after she targeted. She threw me off the plane, but off the airlines eventually. And that's why I didn't get in touch with you all, because
we're empowering the uneducated. Yeah. That is the worst part about this. We have people who have no expertise in anything dictating to us how we can live. And it just started with the political correctness movement. At some point, we stopped trying to strive up and we let the bottom tell us how the super sensitive, how we could talk, and the uneducated on how we could, how our health is. It just blows my mind because nobody rocks the boat. But you know what? If you're on a Union on the Unwanted, you probably have a pirate ship and it's time to start raiding some people. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my whole opinion. It's time to start pushing. To me, man, it's like, I'm not going to go on American or United. If you're allowing your stewardesses to talk to customers like that, if I was at Olive Garden and I was talked to the way by a waiter, the way these stewardesses are talking to me, I'm pulling my money out. I'm not going to ride you. I'm going to go Southwest. I'll go Virgin, even though he's been to Epstein's Island, but that's a different conversation. But, I just cannot believe we gotten away from it. And this is like across the board where we see Hollywood, Washington, D.C., the airline industry, not caring what the customer thinks. If we're on this show and we're doing the show and we're disrespecting our listeners, we will have no more listeners. We must remember that the customers, and as a waiter, I hate this, is right. And you keep disrespecting us, I'm going to take my business elsewhere.
Well, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're starting our own airlines. We're getting pilots together who won't wear the masks, who are smart enough. And it's like, hey, we'll just form our own airlines, get a plane, and get people on it and get our group on it. So yeah, we have economic, it was horrible. But I won't let them censor me that way. This was an important meeting in Ohio. Bobby Kennedy Jr. was there. We needed to educate these people. So I took my little copper mask, and I guarantee I didn't wear it very long, but I just, and I paid for a first class ticket that I knew I wasn't going to get reimbursed. Well, I just charged my credit card, and I'm not paying that either. So we too could play at that game. And I just, it's like, because I can sit there and they'll at least be nice to you. They at least don't attack you. And then I'm extremely polite and I fake it. I've got a scarf on, so I kind of do this, and I do everything I can and sit by the window, and I just, to try and just keep my cool and make sure that they don't censor me more by keeping me off planes. But everywhere I go, I drive if I can. And I only do the things that I think we just have to do, because I'm not going to let them keep me off a plane. I mean, I think about getting kicked off and making a stand more on the way home, but I had to be on this call today. So I landed at 3:30 and I got home from Santa Barbara. I drive really fast to Ventura. Yes, and my husband was right there, so we know how to get off the plane but usually on the way there, I'm not going to jeopardize anything of educating people, and that's what we're trying to do, is just say these people, they're looking for answers. They're looking for us to teach them. They're looking for the courage to take off that mask, and if we can find a way to keep doing it for them, that's what we're here for.
I think it's important for Dr. Judy to get into her story of how she got arrested, and also her, for speaking out, and then also her relationship with Fauci back in the 80s. And I watched listened to almost all of Sam's shows, but one of the ones you had someone talk about the relationship between like Jesus and how that they were also, taking these different, as part of the anointing oils have cannabis in it. And Dr. Judy mentioned that we have a endocannabinoid system, and yet we've had marijuana illegal for basically 90 years because we don't have enough research on it. And yet this bullshit vaccine that's not a vaccine, gets rushed out. So what is there in terms of having cannabis being illegal and having an endocannabinoid system? And also, getting into your story, because I know your story, but I think it's important that all the listeners hear exactly what the man did to you in order to do this. And obviously, like you and Tina Marie, you're not here because you want to get super famous. As a matter of fact, Tina, last year, she wanted me to get a story out and from one of her friends, and I asked to interview her, and she goes, no, I don't really want to be in front of the camera. And it only took, her best friend getting, essentially murdered by Big Pharma, allegedly, once we get this investigation, in order for her to come out here. So, both of these women are heroes. They're not out here to, to get fame. They're here doing, the work that needs to be done. But I know I asked a lot of different questions there, but if you could help with like the endocannabinoid system, because I don't, and see what the relationship there is.
You're muted, Judy.
Oh. It's a receptor and system on every one of our cells, and I give whole lectures on that. But so it's endogenous. We're born with it. We're all the way back through the generations. All animals and everything have their own endocannabinoid system, and it's very important for regulating inflammation, keeping your immune system. The dimmer switch on the immune system. What is the disease COVID? Oh, the flame gets too high. You burn yourself out. You explode your brain. That's with how these vaccines do it. And this is what is in the slides, and you'll appreciate that. But so we're denied that. Literally the last time anybody sees cannabinoids, calming and things, is from breast milk. So that's your endogenous, given by mother after birth. She's immune suppressed. It's keeping the flame down so you can get your microbiome and you get all your natural communication going in your methylation machinery, everything set in embryogenesis to develop a healthy response system. And when that endocannabinoid system is dysregulated, that's anxiety, that's pain, that's itch, that's cough. I've got gummies on those planes so I don't cough from my natural, because I have a pleurisy. I have fluid in my lungs. I was born with a structural defect, and sorry, my husband just spilled something all over the table. Anyway, so I was born with a genetic defect. And so, my story and the rest, that's why we wrote the books. And I'm happy to send anybody the electronic version of any of the books, because it kind of tells you, it's not linear at all at what happened, but the long and short of it is, after they hunted me down like an animal, the way they did to Brandy in recent months, they tried it for a few months. And when I would not give up the data, and then they realized we tricked them, we turned the tide on them, and that's the last story. We didn't throw the data away. They don't know enough about science to know that your mentor has to maintain copies of your notebooks, copies at all times. So they fabricated this crime. We've got the emails of Fauci. We've got the emails of Lipkin. We've got it all. And so what are you really going to do? We wrote the books, kill me. It really doesn't matter at this point in time. I like to say God has a sense of humor, which is why I'm still here. But it doesn't matter to me. I don't want to do this. I wish we could just end the whole thing, and I could, go home or stay. I live in a one-room apartment and a studio, one room. And I just rather spend time with my 82-year-old husband and just, quit this, but that's not obedience to God. And so I can't do that. So if it's just a matter of, what do you do? The only thing you can do is the right thing to do. And if you're smart about it, it works out, and we are smart about it. And I think about every move, like I just said. I have to pay the highest amounts for plane tickets because I can't make plans that far in advance. I can't. Thank God my mom died and left me a car. She was killed by the vaccines because she believed more the TV. And when I just got out of jail in 2012, a doctor said, well, you have to get the Prevnar and the flu shot. And they gave her AFib, and then they bled her out with Eliquis, a horrible, slow, painful death over the next 6 years. And she died in January of 2019. Well, I can't help it if half my family, believes, as Sam was saying, your own family, your own friends. Yeah, you lose a lot of friends, you lose a lot of people, but, at the end of the day, you go home with your own soul, and you just can't think about anything. As I usually say, I don't obey anybody but God. That's the only authority on this earth. And part of that is speak the truth in love. And, I had a little problem. I had a little anger issue after, I lost my career and the $10 million I'd saved and made in my life, and, my reputation, everything. I had a little anger issue. My husband said I was a 10 on a scale, and so I had to get over that, because if you can't, it's not about me. And Andy Wakefield taught me that it's not about me. They'll kill you and they'll just pull the next person in. So if you want to stay here and you want to help, you have to find a way to get it done. So, the books tell the story, and it's horrific. And I know what the fear was palpable from in 2011 and 12, but they thought they silenced me. And thanks to Kent Heckenlively, Mickey Willis, Lori, I met an oral surgeon, Dr. Lori, who lived near me, and we met at a meeting in Florida on stem cells. And we realized we lived a block apart. And she read the book there in March of 2019, and she kept bugging Mickey. He was a good friend of hers. You got to see this, you got to see this, you got to see this. And then she yelled at me and told me, you don't have a dead man's trigger in this book, because it was supposed to end with a chapter called The Way Forward. And this was March of 2019. She said, you don't have a dead man's trigger. I'm so naive, I don't even know what that is. That's oh, you better be wearing a vest with all these grenades, and you got the top, you can blow everybody up if you blow you up with the nuclear bomb. And I'm like, okay. So I just called Kent and I added one last chapter and said, maybe there's another story I should tell you. And I told you how there are people with ethics and morals. And Dr. Frank Rossetti saved every sample. They forced him into retirement after they jailed me. But they gave him 2 years, and that's way too long to give Frank Rossetti to make sure he got everything. And we stored it in a warehouse, in the Midwest, and while we're writing all these things, we're moving it out of there. And sure, I think they know where it is. Doesn't really matter that they know where it is. The fact is, we handed the FBI a hard drive in the Attorney General's office in 2014, a hard drive, and explained to this FBI agent on tape with a lawyer. I paid $10,000. I didn't have it. I put it on a credit card that I don't intend to pay. I'm never paying taxes again. And I win every time in tax court, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love a hearing. I'm going to tell you how you took every one of my constitutional rights. And they're like, no, just sign the paper. You don't owe us anything, because that $10,000 doesn't matter to that story getting out. And so, they're all playing intertwined. So, the joke's on you. And that's why pandemic was such a big deal, because Mickey interviewed me and he's like, but then you've got the COVID-19, and then they planned the event 201. And then dear Ty and Charlene Bollinger invite me to go to the Truth About Cancer in October of 2019 in Anaheim. And I was so excited because I hadn't given a scientific talk. I hadn't worked in years. And I thought, oh boy, I'm going to get to tell them how to heal with cannabis and vitamin D and all those good things, quercetin, and all the things that we do. And the next day I accepted it. And the next day she said, I want you to talk about persecution and cover up. And my heart just sank. And I was going to have to go back and look at what they did to me, because unless you can get yourself out of it, and that's what Andy Wakefield said at that very meeting in Florida. He said, the minute I learned it wasn't about me, because people, then that you can just keep looking at the science. So he helped me that day in Florida, and that's basically the story. It just, the minute it's not about you and there's a bigger thing, and if you do it right, you serve God. No, you might not. You might leave this planet, but we all do. But at least my eternity and soul are good with me, and we live in joy. We don't need money. We never did. So that the joke's on them, because we've got that tape. We've got the FBI was so upset because Frank Rossetti's showing them all this stuff. He said, I never thought medicine, I never thought a doctor would knowingly inject toxin into a newborn baby and kill them. He was floored, and we got him on tape. And what they do with that. So we know all our FBI is corrupt. We know all of it, and it's all playing out in COVID. So we've hit the tipping point. One of the doctors in Virginia wrote me last week and said, after watching the Line in the Sand.us with me, lineinthesand.us with me, Bobby, and David Martin. And it was really David Martin and Bobby, because they're working on other ends, and I'm just the person who was right in the middle of it. But then they see everything, and they've got every one of them, and they've got them. And she wrote me and she said, I never thought we'd see the tipping point and get them. But after watching that show, I think we have seen the tipping point, and we've got them. So all we have to do is stay smart, keep talking, keep loving each other, and just spread it to everybody we can. And it's really simple.
Jeff, we have to be super spreaders.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Chrissy, I think you kill it. You should be making t-shirts. You come up with the best.
Okay, I'm on it, guys.
Jeff, I know you've been waiting with your hand up, your virtual hand up for a while.
Yeah, how's everybody doing? Wow, this has been amazing listening to this. Happy New Year to everyone. Dr. Judy, wow, you really need the Nobel Peace Prize. Your information is absolutely. My question simply is, and it's kind of a three-pronged, but it kind of all fits together. What are your thoughts on this vaccine and what we're hearing about? And there's so much mis and disinformation. I hope you guys can hear me. So much mis and disinformation about the vaccines and the nano aspect of this. And in my opinion, what we're rolling into is a eugenics-based kind of transhumanist technocratic agenda. What are your thoughts on these vaccines' role in that? And thoughts of maybe, I don't know, I'm an elder statesman a little bit. Maybe you remember all the microbiologists that had died over these several years, decades, the last couple of decades. Do you think the microbiologist deaths has any role in this? And what are your thoughts on the role of this all playing into a very larger eugenicist plan and the nano aspect? Not talk about 5G, because I didn't really like that conversation, but is there any nano aspect to any of this?
Oh, absolutely. The number one, the microbiologist and the molecular biologist and all the doctors that died, absolutely. Anybody that catches on, they take out. Anybody that catches on, they take out, because they don't want, and they can take you out the way they thought they took me out, by just ruining my reputation. So nobody will talk to me anymore. But they didn't count on, that. They didn't count on things like film and books. And as far as the nano aspect, absolutely. And it's right there in the vaccine. It's a lipid nanoparticle. It's synthetic. It has PEG, polyethylene glycol, and other things, nanobots right in that synthetic virus, the RNA they're injecting, it has to be protected, or your immune system would gobble up naked RNA in the blood or anywhere else in the body. Outside of the nucleus, you don't have naked RNA. That's a danger signal to your immune system, and it'll turn on the various mechanisms to gobble it up like a Pac-Man. So yes, they made a synthetic lipid nanoparticle. They coated it in it. And this is why that's what I did yesterday. I gave 2 talks. I gave one on Gardasil, and Gardasil also uses a similar virus-like particle. Well, if you put a virus-like particle that's usually restricted by which receptors, like we've heard the ACE2 receptor is how that virus, SARS-CoV-2 gets into the cell. That's how coronaviruses get into the cell. Have to get into the cell because they need the cell machinery and they need to be protected. It's just RNA. And so the virus has to get into the cell through the spike protein and protect its RNA. Then it uncoats and then it makes more of itself and all of that. So yeah, now you make a synthetic lipid nanoparticle and a virus-like particle in the Gardasil. And that's why that Gardasil vaccine is also so deadly. And the HPV of recently is deadly. The first ones were from humans, from tissue culture and things like that we use today. So yeah, it's synthetic. Yeah, it's intended for transhumanization. They have the luciferase gene. Luciferase is an enzyme that makes the firefly glow. So, the firefly goes black and white, and so now you can track every cell in the body. And so in the animal studies, they show the vaccine going to the spleen. And where's the problem with ITP? Oh, it starts in the spleen. So you can see exactly what happened to that doctor who died. So it just was an explosion in the spleen, and the platelets just sent that cytokine storm to the point where he destroyed his own tissue and he literally bled. That's what happens. You die, you bleed out and you die. You can't do anything about it. So that's, yeah, of course it's nanotechnology. And that's why we have to say that's not a vaccine. No, that's not a vaccine. That's a drug. That's a synthetic drug intended to make your cells a little death factory, a disease-producing factory.
Well, any thoughts on, I think it was Dr. Lieber, the gentleman who was working with China on his kind of specific application was vaccines as well as nanotech. Is that, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know him at all.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
I don't know Dr. Lieber at all.
Help me, guys. Did I say the right name? Was it Doc?
Yeah, I'm also not familiar with the name.
Yeah, right before all this kicked off, he was a gentleman, an American guy who got arrested, like a Harvard
Yeah. He was. I know who you're talking about. There was a somebody who from
Charles Lieber.
Charles Lieber. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you.
Yeah, he got arrested, and it was funny. That story kind of just disappeared.
Well, they're shipping those cells around the world. This is the point. You know, everybody thinks, oh, the virus got lost in the seafood. No, the manufacturing plant is the Vero monkey kidney cells. They sent them from Fort Detrick with Ebola and everything else. That's what I talked about earlier. I'll send you the paper and show you everything that's in that garbage. They'll come out with the next one and the next one. It's a little manufacturing plant. You got to realize that. That's what the Vero monkey kidney cell line are. They grow in a fermenter like your craft beer or your wine. And and Charles Lieber was shipping that around the world. So they, you know, that's what you have to package. That's the lipid nanoparticle. You have to package the viral RNA and the expression vector in order to keep it from degrading. That's why we have to keep it at -70, because the cells will die, you know, or liquid nitrogen, because the cells will die. So it's, you know, it's a weapon for sure. And they've been doing it for years, since at least 2011, shipping this around, and more like 2005. And that's all the research since the original SARS that we showed in the Joshua Phillips interview I did with Epoch Times. I believe it came out on April 8th of last year.
One last question. I got to dip, guys. Do you see this being a continuous, almost like the war on terrorism, this invisible enemy? Are they always going to keep finding new variants, new this and that, to keep lockdowns on, to keep the mask and all these regulations? And do you think, I mean, obviously you guys have probably already talked about it. Are the masks just a precursor to, you can't come in the store without a mask, and then here in a couple weeks, months, you can't do this and this without a vaccine, and it's not mandatory, but it's almost de facto mandatory in that you can't participate in society without it.
Right. And yes, so exactly. That's exactly what we were saying. They'll come out with the strain du jour. So if we don't stop it now and we don't take off the mask, because what the mask is doing is crippling you. So the mask will make you sick. You will get sick if you wear it. You'll start sneezing and coughing, and if you're near anyone that got a flu shot, if you're dumb enough to get a flu shot, that makes you even more immune compromised. The mask is making you sick. And that's so if we don't take off the mask and we don't stop it now, it'll never end. And we already see, the vaccine, oh no, it won't protect you. You've seen the doctors and nurses get the disease after they got the shot. And they're saying, well, it takes 2 weeks, and well, you need the next dose. So don't take off the mask and don't stop social distancing. It's never going to end if we don't stop it now. And we've got to stop it forever. We'll never have another flu season because the flu vaccine drives that. It's a Hallmark season. Remember, out come the pumpkins, out come the flu shots, and they're not free. So we have to stop it now. That's why we're here.
What do you think the spike in bacterial pneumonia is going to be blamed on? That we've been seeing and that we're going to continue to see as long as people do have a mask over their face for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, or wearing it at home, or whatever ridiculous shit people are going to be told to do, and series of hoops they have to jump through before they can walk out their own front door.
Right. And the masks are bacteria. They're not sterile. You're walking around with this, that's why I use the silver copper one. If I have to do anything, they're not sterile. They're carrying bacteria on everyone. You're making yourself sick, and fungus and mycoplasma and mold, go for it. And the little paper ones are sprayed with toxic fluoride, Teflon, and have pesticides and glyphosate. I mean, yeah, go for it. If you tear the asbestos out of your buildings and you knock those down, why would you put it on your face and breathe it in when you're suffocating yourself? This is the problem. We've got to get the masks off. It's driving all the disease, and they're contaminated. If you read a book called The Great Influenza by John M. Barry, Barry, they wore the masks in 1918, and it was the bacterial contamination of the vaccine and the bacterial in the masks being bacterially contaminated. And that spread the disease and the death, because you need two. Viruses rarely travel alone. You need bacteria, you need parasites, Babesia. Dr. Klinghardt showed me that never does a retrovirus go without Babesia. And so that, why do you think an anti-parasitic, why use ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine? Because, viruses need to persist in the immune system. They need the host. They're obligate parasites. They don't want to kill you. So they, get together with somebody else that takes out the immune system. It's like fighting a war on two fronts. So, the mask is driving all of it. It's dirty. It's contaminated. I don't care. It's not sterile. It's depleting your glutathione and your type 1 interferons and driving the disease. So again, the mask is the thing everybody has to get off, and everybody will be healthy.
Now, Airey Bros, Charlie, Chaney, and TruthZilla, you guys have any questions? Anything you want to jump in? I know you guys have been patiently waiting.
Dr. Judy, I had actually two questions for you. One, I've heard the quiver of, zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C. I've recently heard some people, including yourself, talk about Q-certain. So maybe if you could kind of touch on that and the benefits. And then I don't know if this gets too off getting sideways, but again, I'm one of those people who friends, family think I'm a crazy person, talk to me less and less when I talk about some of these things. So maybe if you could just kind of touch on some of the craziness that is Fort Detrick as well.
I can
Fort Detrick was a fabulous experience for the 22 years that I was there. I mean, everything heavily contaminated with all kinds of things. And yes, Chrissy's got a bottle of quercetin. You can get it in many different forms. It's a natural product. What it does is it helps your liver clear toxins. So quercetin and a number of other things, your liver has to clear all the toxins from everything in your body and the hormones. So if you can keep your liver healthy, you can generate energy. This is why ketone bodies and ketone diet, ketosis is a good thing. And we've all been lied to, because if you burn a ketone body, which is part of fat, you get 4 times the energy of glycolysis and mTOR. So these sugars and garbage food and everything are destroying. That's why we see all the increase in pancreatitis and pancreatic cancer, because we're just our mTOR pathway is spinning on overdrive all the time. So quercetin takes the stress off that pathway and actually regulate it. So there's another pathway called NRF2, and they're all named for really bad reasons, but it's really just straight biochemistry of nutrition. So quercetin is a good one. And in this
milk thistle, right? Milk thistle is another.
Milk thistle practically cured AIDS. Milk thistle is a fabulous, because the AIDS patients, and that's why I watch the Dallas Buyers Club. So they're telling you the truth in all the movies. It's hard to watch some of the things, but they're telling you they know. The Dallas Buyers Club, and the band played on was 1993. Oh, the band played on with Alan Alda, and what did it open with? Ebola. So they've been doing that craziness at Fort Detrick. That's why I can sit on film and tell you that, because I'm doing that. I'm culturing the bat tissue, the Ebola, and trying to find cell lines that don't get killed by the virus. Because again, if the virus can't persist in the cell line, you can't manufacture it, you can't study it. And so, this is what people don't realize. And we developed, my whole life, I probably developed, 20, 30 cell lines. And my job is to transform cells, get them to grow outside the body. The Vero monkey kidney cells have no type 1 interferon. So I'm like, I'm going to grow back virus there because I understand the molecular biology. That's what my PhD is. So you use the natural products and the immune modulators, the biological response modifiers, to get the effect you want. So it's Fort Detrick. Oh my God. So, I think my friend, Mike Hugo, the attorney, the vaccine court attorney, had a lawsuit for environmental toxins there. The water, we think about the seafood market in Wuhan, China, and we know that the monkey kidney cells came straight from Fort Detrick by way of Tony Fauci funded it. He had them shipped there and everything else. Well, Mike Hugo, there were some of the people living just outside of Fort Detrick that had 22 different types of cancer. Many of my friends locally, their kids all had weird things. The water was contaminated. Everything's contaminated there. They had anthrax. The scientist who they killed and they blamed for the anthrax release came out of Fort Detrick, and he didn't do it. We knew him. They just did what they did to, or tried to do to me, try to get you to kill yourself. They try to get you to kill yourself. They try to get you to think you're crazy. They try to get you to drink yourself to death or whatever it is you're going to do. Or scare yourself to death, whatever they try to do as they're hunting you down. And they did this to Bruce Ivins, and he killed himself because he had kids. My nephews and nieces were their friends. And the craziness at Fort Detrick, I didn't know most of it while I was there, thank God. God has a sense of humor, and we don't get to, if I'd known any of this when this happened to me in 2011, I don't know if, you can call me brave or whatever. I'm just that stupid that I just do the right thing and keep doing the right thing and praying to God. I answer the right questions. That's really all it is. I'm not any braver than anybody else. It's just that all I really do is fear God. And that's the worst thing to me, is that I end up on the other side anyway, because they're going to kill us anyway. And they're going to kill you anyway. If they want to be dead right now, I'd be dead right now, and I do want to talk to Tina privately about Brandy, because I know some things about that. Anyway, it just, you're, I don't know what to say. It's, yeah. An interesting time, but the good news is we survived, and we as a country and a world can thrive if we just simply take down all of science right now, and we'll balance the budget. They're all corrupt. They all keep the drugs from you. They all blame you. It's your bad behavior. And now it's the elderly, because they're on that Social Security that they've been stealing for the last, 40, the program's bankrupt. So they got to kill the elderly and call it COVID. And now the infants, they've got to reduce the birth rate. So they just kill the infants from the vaccines from day one. So again, we don't get off this roller coaster until we all stand up and say, you know what, my health is right here. My health is God, the sunshine, vitamin C, vitamin D, just good old fashioned chicken soup, bone broth. That's where all your minerals are. But you got to know, and in fact, my friend Zach Bush did a show, I think it was 2018. He talked on Del Bigtree's thehighwire.com. And if everybody doesn't watch that show every Thursday, that's where I get most of my knowledge, because, Del hears me and he puts the science behind it. He hears other people and he puts the science behind it. So, and he sends the message out in a way that everybody can understand. So Zach Bush was on Highwire a few years ago, maybe June of 2018. He's an endocrinologist, and he said, forget your doctor, know your farmer, know where your food comes from, go back to eating healthy food. He showed an amazing story about Chernobyl survivors and how that equates with your food. So I agree with him completely. He's brilliant, and he makes a product called Restore, which heals your gut, which is basically just mineral water. I think they call it something different now, but drinking a cap full of this stuff a day. Again, getting to know Dr. Daniel Newsom, Nuzum. He makes a lot of natural product therapeutics. They attacked him. They tried to kill him. They just tried to destroy him. But he came back, and he keeps making great products and medicines. Lots and lots of people, Joe Mercola, Dr. Cowan, just a lot of people who are still fighting, and we just have to educate people to know that. I think it's the easiest way I could say anything is the North Koreans or the South Koreans, both of them, all the people that border China, there's no COVID. You know why? The minute the Chinese speak, they do exactly the opposite. That's what we need to do. When Tony Fauci says something, do the opposite, and you won't only survive, you'll thrive. And that's what we have to do. Turn off our TVs. It's killing us. I mean, I fell asleep last night with the TV on in the hotel room, and I woke up in the middle of the night and they were showing this, COVID. Oh, there's 1 million cases. There are all these new cases. And I'm like, shut up, bitch. And I turned off the remote and went to bed. It's like, what? They're just, it's like 3 a.m. and they just keep going and they just keep programming you. And it's just, turn it off. And that's the way we end up. We've been binge watching the Waltons. That's something they never ever say the word vaccine in the 70s when the Waltons was made, and in the 30s and things like that. So it's just, there are edifying things we can do to keep ourselves from letting it all just get to us.
Chinese food.
Yeah, my husband.
Judy, thank you for all the information tonight. Blowing my mind. I'm going to have to go back and take more notes from this. Question I have for you, and you mentioned this at the beginning of the show, that the vaccine companies wanted to have lifelong customers. What went from them wanting to have lifelong customers to killing people and or sterilizing them?
I think the tipping point of we, the royal we, Del Bigtree, Bobby Kennedy, the I Can Decide movement, Brandy, Vaughan, the people, the injury tipped the tipping point to where they weren't smart enough to do things that would kill people after a little while. They gave them Alzheimer's disease, autism, Parkinson's disease, Lou Gehrig's disease. Oh, wait a minute, they don't die. What do? They live on the systems. We can't afford it. The brilliant foreword to our first book by Hillary Johnson was a disease to affect the economy and nations. Think of what mad cow costs the UK. They can't afford it. They're liable because the blood supply was contaminated. Watch the band played on. The blood supply was contaminated for 30 years while they said HIV caused AIDS despite the science. And then when we figured that out, they got to pay for that. 6% of America, those people don't get anything. They don't get any medicine. They don't get any health care. They don't have jobs. So now you have a dysfunctional army, all with PTSD. You couldn't, you've got doctors, nurses, everybody's sick, and the country can't afford it. So, I mean, we can't function as a society, that 1 in 36 boys have autism right now. So these kids never leave home. Who's going to take care of them? They're in these institutions. Why do you think they sent that kill shot to the institutions and the mentally disabled? That's what you'll see in the slideshow. Give them to the nursing homes and the long-term care facilities. They don't die. They're there, feeding off the system. And they've decided that it's time. This was Obamacare. You didn't get anything after 75. You're useless to society. So they decide who lives and dies. And they've already got the kids, because the kids aren't having kids because they can't. They're heavily vaccinated. They won't. The Gardasil took care of sterilizing 25%. So we've seen those birth rates go down. So they've accomplished their goal. And now they've got a little problem because some people figured it out, like Del Bigtree, like they were winning the lawsuits all the way back in December of 2019. There was an international meeting with the WHO, and the woman scientist, the head of it, said, we don't know what. It's causing all kinds of injuries. They're not single agent drugs. They're garbage. You've taken mouse pieces and animal pieces and injected directly into humans, and you've created a nightmare that now the country can't take it. So the kill switch is, have we hit the point where now think about COVID-19? We cremate everybody. Oh, you're going to destroy the evidence. Nobody gets to go in the hospital and see how they killed him. Nobody will ever figure it out. They'll just say, oh, it was just like the 1918. You know, they blame Spain, and Spain had nothing to do with it. And nobody died over there because they didn't listen to them, you know. And so it's going to be just like the 1918 Spanish flu. Every 100 years, we play the same game and think the rest of us are that stupid to believe it. So this is the problem. And a lot of people will die. We're already seeing it. And innocent people like the doctors and nurses, it's up to us to find a way to educate them. But I think that the difference is we caught them. We caught them. We caught them on film. We caught them in books. We caught them in lawsuits. Think about the glyphosate, the case of it causing cancer, the Roundup that RFK Jr. Won here in California. You know, that was billions of dollars. That's right what was happening in the 70s with the vaccine injuries. The vaccine program wouldn't have existed at all if all liability had been removed. So you're doing the same thing right now. You've created, no liability. It's emergency. No, it's not an emergency. Nobody's sick and nobody's dying. But we have to get up and say that and hit the streets and say we're all healthy. I mean, I tried every morning. I just run out and say, hey, did you hear? It's all over. Look, everybody's really healthy. No mask anymore. You know, they'll start looking at you like, you know, somebody's got to find a way to tell somebody the emperor has no clothes, because he doesn't. And we all know that. Tony Fauci's just the Wizard of Oz, you know, a little prick behind the window trying to be a big man, because he never was. And
the guy who created the PCR test was also not a big fan of Dr. Fauci.
No, all the scientists, Carrie Mullis, Peter Duesberg, all the people, you know, Peter Duesberg, you know, they destroyed his career saying HIV doesn't cause AIDS. He said it first in the 70s or 80s. So Fauci just created himself a little fiefdom and twisted everything around. And now he controls, you know, I don't know, something like $6 billion in grants. So anybody that gets a grant, every educational system, every university, the grant, half of that or twice the amount goes to turning on the lights at the universities. So why is our college education so expensive? Take down the universities. They're corrupt as well. They're just brainwashing your kids, as we heard earlier, because the doctors and nurses know that. They you know, they're just brainwashed. That's not science. And I know that. My 25-year-old nephew 2 years ago took a advanced immunology graduate school class in his senior year of college. And he was flunking, and my identical twin was going to kill me. And so I texted him and said, Logan, what's up? And he said, you don't understand, Aunt Judy. That's not the immunology you and Uncle Frank taught me. Chinese professor? She didn't have any idea what she was doing. We had to retrain him. And he said, well, what do I do when I get to the point of you know, vaccines? I say, because I retrained him and said, just answer the question the way she wants it answered. Get out of school and we'll talk about it later. And he said, what about vaccines? I said, you tell the truth about vaccines. When they come to HPV or any other question about vaccines, you say the real science, and I'll be on them like a cheap suit. And they will wish they never flunked you, but they didn't ask. And he said, when do I tell him? He got a 98 on the test, the highest grade of the class, and he didn't flunk. And and he said, when do I tell him who you and Uncle Frank are? Because I wasn't married to my husband David when Logan was a little kid growing up. So I've been with Uncle Frank for 37 years working for him, and with David only 20. So so I said, never. Don't tell him. Just don't say anything. Just get the hell out of there, get the degree, and go. All he wanted to do was be a swim coach with Michael Phelps and Bob Bowman. The kids are they're brainwashed, and these universities are nothing. I have people that call me and say, well, what do I do? I've waited my whole life to go to medical school at UCLA, and I have to take these shots, and they're the most susceptible person in the world. I said, don't go. And they're like, well, no, I have to do. No, we've got to change the narrative. We've got to start suffering and say, no, really? Your life is worth that? Because let me show you that kid in that diaper, that 21-year-old little girl. Well, she's not a little girl. She's 21 years old. She's in a diaper from Gardasil. She's been in a bed in a dark room. She's in so much pain that the blanket has to be set above her body. You want me to show you the damage, the carnage? Go to the meeting. Really, you really want to go to UCLA if they say you can't be on a Zoom classroom without a flu shot? That's just stupidity. I'm sorry. You can't do anything about that.
TruthZilla.
Yeah,
Chaney, you guys want to? Yeah.
I was just gonna hop in. Dr. Judy, it's such an honor to be here. I'm here with my co-host Megan down there. I know that she has been using, the pandemic series to really just red pill as many people as possible. It's been, it's been so enlightening, going back and researching your story and learning about your story and your interaction with Fauci and everything. And that was the one thing that I was gonna ask too, is just like, united in your feud with him over the years, looking at Kerry Mullis. I know Ricky just kind of mentioned him, but I was just curious, had your paths ever crossed along the way at all? And what are your thoughts on his timely demise to this whole agenda that's been rolled out?
No, we didn't. I knew of him. See, this is the thing with Tony Fauci, not a long feud. He yelled at a 25-year-old, and in 2010, he took all the funding away from the institution and threatened they'd never get another dime at the University of Nevada or the Whittemore Peterson. So they just took me out, and he stood there and said, and insulted me in 2010 because, he knew the kids were getting killed with this virus. He said, "Oh, I study real viruses." And so 2 interactions in 20 years, they funded our studies because, we got away with, people don't understand when you submit a paper and you work for the National Cancer Institute, it goes through all of the institutes because one institute and the CDC and the FDA, so they have to approve everything that comes out. And Frank Rossetti's still in the National Cancer Institute. They approve everything. They see everything. It's censor. Nobody is allowed to make anything except little incremental gains. So the good news was, after Tony Fauci yelled at me and did what he did to Frank Rossetti and the AIDS patients in 1984, Frank Rossetti never submitted a paper through channels. I work for a 2-person institute, and the bosses have a sick daughter who I get well. So, it slips through the cracks, and I think it was still the best day of my life. I just wish I were a fly on the wall on October 8th, 2009, when that paper was published and everybody went, "Oh shit." And once Pandora's box is open, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. It's done. So, Fauci and, Kerry Mullis there, and even Peter Duesberg. The last time Frank Rossetti talked to Peter Duesberg was 1975. And I was in high school. So they're 30 years older than me. They're 25 to 30. I'm a technician. I'm just a woman who nobody cares about. And they just underestimate 2 people with ethics, Frank Rossetti and Judy Mikovits. And they think they can buy off everybody. And the story of plague and pandemic is, you can't. And this is why God has a sense of humor, little David and Goliath for you, because they're going down, and they're already down, and they know it. And that's why they hit the kill switch with COVID. That's why they planned it. That's why they had Event 201. Let's see if we can calm the whole universe, because Trump wasn't, don't forget, when Trump was running for president in 2016, remember when Hillary fell out of the car in New York, stumbled on the curb, and everybody was worried about her health and everything? It was right later, September, October. And she said, "Oh, I'm just fine. I got my vaccines." And their doctor came on and said, "Oh, I'm just fine. I got my vaccines." And Trump comes on and like, "No, I'm fine. I never get vaccines, never got a flu shot, never did anything." And who came on 60 Minutes the Sunday before the election? Tony Fauci. Oh, we're just gonna try and turn it all around. All of those people that saw Trump say, no, people can choose what they take all these years, the freedom of choice. He still gave it, even on warp speed. on warp speed, sure, you can do it. No, you don't have to wear a mask. You don't want to wear a mask? You don't wear a mask. And warp speed, let's show them the injury. Let's let them, God gives you what you ask for. We have free will as people. And, okay, if you don't educate yourself and you let them trick you, 70 more years in the desert. I think it was the book of Joshua. I'm not really good on the Bible yet, but I better learn quickly. But that's the thing. It's just, yes. At 40, whatever. So this is the thing. Please, David, my husband's answering for me. But this is the whole thing. We all have to wake up. There's plenty of opportunity for us all to get educated and do your own homework. Go educate yourself. You don't have to believe what I say. Just go look at the data. And that's why we wrote it in the books and we showed it in the movie, and Mickey gave you the movie, and Brian Rose has interviews on freedomplatform.tv with Mickey Willis on August 18th with Dr. David Martin about September 16th or 17th, with all the people we heard, just all the people that have risen up to explain one part. And when everybody sees the different parts and we're not, that's why they want us to isolate. They don't want us to talk to each other. So that's why we have to keep doing everything we can to see what we saw. And you'll find people who saw the crime. And that was just the blessing of David and Mickey, because they knew things I had no clue. Because I never even thought of that guy in 30 years. I would never work for that guy. I don't work for people like that. And he tried to bribe Frank into work, into making discoveries. And Frank said, no, not me. No, that's not our game. That's not how we work. But, a lot of people care about the fame and the fortune. You should know that Harvey Alter just got a Nobel Prize this year. Oh, what did he do? He withdrew the confirmation study of our paper, knowing full well it was right and true from the beginning. So they offered me the Nobel Prize in March of 2012. All I had to do was sign a little piece of paper and say, I made a mistake and the XMRVs weren't what we thought they were. And I just made a mistake, and I'd spend the rest of my life doing honest research. Guarantee I'd have shared that Nobel Prize this year. I don't give a shit about that stuff. No, if one family got hurt, William Thompson's not a whistleblower. He's a criminal. He should be dead. They should lock him up forever. He put that data in his safe and held it there for 20 years, while millions of Black children's families and Black families were destroyed with autism, death, cancer, you name it. And had he just published the data, we would have understood the RNA cell pathway. We could have ended that, because if you tell the truth, science always, all you need to see is the raw data, and you can always figure out a solution. We have the answers right now. We just need to get rid of these criminals. That's all.
Thanks, Judy. And I just have one more question, if that's all right. So this is actually from Ed. He's our third host of the show. He couldn't make it here tonight, but he was curious, just in regards to the coronavirus vaccine, about the 50 million dead Americans claim. Is that due to immune enhancement or from the tainted blood supply that you talked about? Does that make sense?
It can be antibody dependent enhancement, pathogenic priming, and then just simply the how the PEG and the lipid nanoparticle is toxic. 70% of the country it can have a deadly anaphylactic a response to that shot. I'm losing that word. I was allergic response. It can be deadly to PEG, and 70% of America will make antibodies and respond in a bad way because we've been exposed to PEG and in makeups, in Botox and things like that. So the shots have deadly toxins in them. And then it's just that we're all susceptible because we've all been injected, and we've got the contaminated air, we've got the 5G, we've got the soil depleted of minerals, we got aluminum in the chemtrails. We're set up. That's why, my cough, oxidative stress, fear, stress, wearing the mask for just a few months, all of this destroying your economy, the worry of what you're going to do when you run out of money. You don't have any job. So yeah, even the worst thing you can do in America today is cough. But this is, I've got the gamma retroviruses. And I can get that lung cancer pretty quick if I don't keep myself healthy, which I keep myself fine. I'm coughing a lot today because of the cross-country plane flight, but I'll be fine in a few days because I'll take my quercetin, I'll take my cannabis, I'll eat healthy foods, get some healthy egg yolks, and get my brain firing again.
I think you've been spitting fire for the last 3 hours. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anybody wants to question your knowledge on information, you've been interviewed for almost 3 hours. So I think the fact that you can do that, a little bit about health and staying healthy and keeping your energy levels up. And also it means that you're prepared to do the Joe Rogan podcast. Let's turn JRE to Judy Rogan experience and let's get you on there, and but yeah, does anybody have, I don't want to keep you too long, Judy. I know we've been talking for a long time and whatnot. And I know we all super appreciative of your, how much time you've taken out of your day to chat with us and help spread your knowledge, wisdom, and information. And does anybody have any last thoughts for her? Anything you want to ask her before we shut this down?
Hi, Dr. Judy Mikovits. My name's Chaney from the Idiocalypse podcast. I don't know if you feel comfortable speaking on this because I don't want them to turn you into a voodoo priestess overnight. Do you see the spiritual warfare even in the ritual of us standing 6 feet apart, us wearing masks everywhere, us taking knees for everything, us chanting no justice, no peace? Are we doing a lot bigger things? Are we fearing away our free will? And is it becoming fewer and fewer of us that have that attachment to God? Do you feel comfortable speaking about this?
Well, I do see that symbolism and I do see those things. I'm probably a lot more practical because I won't stand on that X because it's imprisonment and that's against the Constitution. You can't make me stand on that place. You can't, I won't ever stand on that place. In fact, I get in between people and make them really uncomfortable. But so I do see that symbolism. I certainly see the mark of the beast in what they're doing to our pineal gland, and injecting in these things. And, that's why that PCR test, don't let anybody stick that swab, not good in your, you can really get it in your meninges and do great damage. So I do see a spiritual warfare that way. I do see this is kind of a pure Satan things, to the point where, these people are pure evil, pedophiles and everything else. And they're, drinking blood and using the aborted fetal tissues. And I've heard adrenochrome and things like that. So I do see that. But I tend to think it's better. I mean, I'm supported here in Ventura because we were introduced to Rob McCoy and Godspeak Church in Thousand Oaks, where there are 1,000 people every week, just, singing, no mass, no nothing. I mean, nobody's sick, nobody tests positive because nobody tests. If you just say, oh, I got a little cold, I'm staying home today, that's, just stop. Don't go into their COVID game. Don't use their words. Don't play their fear game and you stay out of it. And there is no COVID unless we use the word. There is no vaccine. There is no vaccine. It's not a vaccine. That's a chemical. That's a drug, and it's toxic. It doesn't give you immunity. So if you just keep so that's all I really do is just keep the language straight, because otherwise everybody's just, oh, she's just crazy, And at least to date, all I have to say is, well, I may be crazy, but the data are still there. You still haven't disproven me, and they never say anything but she's crazy. But if you show the data, the data don't lie. They never have, and they never will. It's just that, this is how they caught Bob Gallo stealing the HIV credit from the French, because you can see the difference in the virus, the synthetic one of Gallo versus what Luc Montagnier, you can see it on an electron micrograph. Gotcha. So, and this is why the gotcha in our data, because we saved all the samples. We got all the proof. They didn't get away with cremating all the victims. And so, if anybody in any legal arena ever comes through and says, okay, because we'll prove once again, and we can make these bad actors go away forever. But it really is only if everybody stops taking the shot, because what they want is all of us vaccinated, because then they can see it's your own thing. If there are no more unvaccinated, inoculated, healthy people, if they get away with vaccinating everybody because you're afraid of something, or you can't give up that UCLA or that whatever, form your own schools. It's not going to be easy. But it's it's really a time for great life, because we can go really light. It's not a dark winter. We've got everything right now. We can do anything we want. We can be healthy. Did you ever think you'd be home, not doing anything, and just going out and enjoying the beach like I do, in the pool and things like that? We have the opportunity, but if we don't take it, we don't get it. But I do see the satanic. I really do see the Satan in it. I just, they're really attacking Christians. They're taking away our religious freedoms, not just Christians, all God people. We can't use energy therapies. Why not? Light and energy are God. That's love. Energy therapies, a little photons, and we can silence those viruses, but they won't let us use those, and they haven't, because I really do believe this is an attack on freedom, religious freedom, constitutional freedom everywhere. And they will get away with it. This is what hurts me with all my fellow, I'm not going, if you read page 219, the acknowledgments of our book, Plague of Corruption, you'll see I acknowledge 2 churches that helped save my life, really, and neither one of them are open. Whoa. But they did that. Oh, you don't get your tax deduction if you don't obey. No, that's not render under Caesar's. What is Caesar's? Your children, your soul is not the government. That's about all I can really say.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. That's one of the beautiful things about these shows, is that if you were only on one of our shows, obviously you'll get some attention, but to bring so many people together, so many content creators and people who are influential in the alternative media community, have them in on these shows, create a community where we can all talk about this after in our personal shows and whatnot. And we also let people share these shows, so everybody who's participates on the show gets to share it on their platform, so that way it kind of spreads like wildfire. So keeping it open source for me is super important, because the thing that is more important than any of us getting individual clicks is getting these conversations out there. So any way we can do it, we try to do it. So absolutely, thank you so much. People like yourself, Del Bigtree's been on the show. We've had Dr. Brian Hooker on, and we've had so many amazing people like yourself who are willing to put their reputations and so much on the line to go out of their way and spread the information. And it's not easy. And you get a lot of backlash, you get a lot of negativity, you get a lot of stuff that hits you personally. We've all talked to whistleblowers and been around whistleblowers. We know how they can ruin your life. And and I know Steve's shaking his head because he's big into the Assange thing, and he knows. I've talked to Thomas Drake. I've talked to all these whistleblowers. They're all so important, including yourself, Dr. Judy, because we all like to pretend like when the time comes, oh yeah, I would do this, but we don't realize how hard it is. And we should really, appreciate the people who are willing to, in some cases, lose everything for the greater good. And I think that's super important.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I didn't, there were some really horrible times in 2011, and especially the day we escaped on that boat on November 9th, 2011. So that's just, thank God it was a full moon. Thank God, I knew everything was just God sent us a life raft, and all you have to do is take it and get out of there and then figure. But there were times, that I'm just cussing on the floor, and I'm like, I'm going to get my gun and I'm going to kill them all. And it's like, no, that doesn't win. That doesn't help. Then you don't solve. And we didn't know anything. We really didn't know that, so Scientists at Sea is the first chapter after Bobby Kennedy's forward in Plague of Corruption. but it happened 10 days before I was jailed. We had no idea. I knew I was being watched. I had that sixth sense. I knew I was being followed. They were doing things like Tina Marie just said. They were following me by everything we wrote in the books. And see, Ken Heckenlively's an attorney. So after I got out of jail, they said, you can only talk to your attorneys and your family on email. You can't do any social media for 5 years or we'll come get you again. And so, he just taped every word of it. He had me screaming in one ear and his severely injured vaccine injured daughter screaming in the other ear as I drove, around the highway so my husband wouldn't hear me scream. So yeah, it's ugly, it's scary, it's not any fun, but yeah, he said he has hearing aids, so he just turns them off. But I mean, it's not that, if I'd known what was coming, I'm not sure I'd do the same thing. I probably would, but thank God I only got a little bit of it at a time, and I'm just that. That's what I wrote in that acknowledgement. I was raised by my mother, who was a single parent of 4 kids, but in 1968 nobody got a divorce. And so, and she was so upset about the injustice. Why can't she sign a lease for a home without a man and pretending you were married? Why was that misogyny? I mean, so she was so against injustice that if you saw a bully and you did nothing, she'd kill you. So there were many times we're literally standing there trying to protect a kid from a bully, and you're going to get the shit beat out of you, but if you go home, and my little sister would always tell on us, if we went home and mom found out that you let somebody get hurt, you said nothing. That's why the most important thing about pandemic was the last thing, the part, silence equals death. That's where we are now. If everybody does it. So in HIV/AIDS, they used to stand outside the meeting and say, silence equals death. And I didn't understand it at the time, but boy, I do now. And that's why it's like, we all have to say something, and they do those stupid little things. If you see something, say something. Well, we see something. So we have to. There's nothing else, because we don't have humanity if we don't. And that's what I said on that film, and I still believe it. And thank God for all of you out there, at least being willing to listen. And for Kent for writing those books. He taped every word of that I said for hundreds of hours. He could write 4 or 5 books.
Absolutely. And we can't thank you enough for everything, and for your time and your incredible endurance to go this long. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I know we're all super grateful. I can't wait for this interview to spread like wildfire and potentially get us kicked off YouTube, which is which we don't care. But yeah, I mean, so far so good. We're still there now, so hopefully some people will see it on there. But right. Yeah, and it's going to be everywhere. Like I said, everybody participated, which at some point was a lot, and that we'll be sharing it. Our platform, the Union Unwanted, it's on Float, it's on Odyssey, it's on all the alternative places, BitChute, wherever. So we're gonna spread this stuff. This stuff's really important. It's not and that's the thing that's beautiful about this community, because so many of us disagree on certain specific little topics, but it's not about those things. It's about we're all fighting for the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not religious. It doesn't matter if you're from the left or you're from the right. At the end of the day, we all come together because we're fighting for the right thing. And the thing is, those disagreements aren't important when the most important thing, the big picture, we are on the same team. So I think that's super important, and it really shows that's something you see in the alternative media community, that we don't have to nitpick this disagreement or that disagreement. It's like we're on the same team, and we can all help each other, and that's what's important. So Charlie, I know you're my co-host, and I didn't let you say too much today. You have any final thoughts?
I feel like I got a couple units of college credit for sitting through this lecture. This was great. I mean, I thought I knew who Dr. Judy was until this. Now I know. Dr. Judy's kind of a badass.
I got the Badass Award in 2017.
you I get it now. You deserve it. It takes a certain kind of person to understand, to go up against these people. Big Pharma is very dangerous, and they're not run by MDs, they're run by MBAs. They're all convicted felons, and this is a dirty industry, and people they have a very different relationship with Big Pharma. They think of them as being the good guys, the ones that bring help when they need it. And in some cases that might be the case, but there is a component of it that is very dangerous, and you're not allowed to talk about it, which is even more dangerous. So we all recognize that there's a problem when you can't talk about a certain subject. And regardless of how we feel in the truth community, or whatever you want to call us, I think we all agree that we don't like people telling us what we can and can't talk about. So this is regardless of how you feel about vaccines, maybe your hot button may be the treatment of people that just want to talk about vaccines too, because that's a real problem. So thanks a whole lot, Dr. Judy, for coming on, because this is a very important, we can geek out about the New World Order and all that stuff, and that's fun and that's fine. But the vaccine component is so personal and so right in front of our faces now that this has to be a priority to talk about it. And for you to invest 3 hours with us is just amazing. And we really do appreciate it. And thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you, Charlie. I appreciated it. It's fun always. I mean, I was held silence for those 5 years, and I did it when I could talk again. My identical twin said, "You asked for it."
Well, there we go.
I'm actually also a twin. I'm identical twin. Yeah.
Oh, this all makes a lot of sense now. Hang on a second with the talking. Yes, Ricky.
Yeah, maybe it's identical twin thing. Yes, Judy, is your twin as talkative as you? Because mine isn't. Mine isn't as talkative as me. Oh, really?
Yeah, she's worse. I mean, she called me today because she was disgusted about all of this stuff, and she called me today, and I just got to sit and listen, which is fun sometimes. So, because I don't get a word in edgewise with Julie.
Well, thank you so much, and everybody who participates on the show, Airey Bros Radio, check them out. TruthZilla, of course. Chaney, your podcast. You want to plug it? Oh, you're muted.
It's the Idiocalypse.
So
it's like yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and it's available everywhere, also, right?
Yes.
Great.
And then, of course, Slow News Day show. Steve, thanks for being with us again and joining us and all the work you're putting in there. I really love this community. Hopefully, everybody stays connected. We all will help spread this information, and we'll hopefully see some of you guys on the next one.
Yeah, be nice to see you more often.
Hey, thanks everybody. Have a great night. Take care.
Thanks so much, Ricky.